And these are resources that we should note are only available because of that suffering in the community. That more than features or parties must be what motivates your vote and decision making tonight. Like J.P. Johnson, I pray you will exercise wisdom beyond your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments. Is there a hand up in Zoom?
No, it was JP.
We do have public.
Oh, okay, sorry.
We have a Trudy Rust.
Trudy Rush, go ahead, state your name and what city you're from, and go ahead with your comment. Is Trudy Rush, can you hear me?
Does she have a microphone?
Muted.
All right, we'll come back to Ms. Trudy. Go ahead and state your name and the city.
Yes. My name is Nick Sigalakis. I'm a proud resident of Fayetteville, Arkansas. I'm here to express my particular concerns with agenda item 12 on tonight's meeting agenda. While I appreciate the altruistic intent of the sponsor's resolution, and I do believe that our municipal and county government should consider drafting resolutions with positive law impact in mind, I also believe they need to be mindful in their deliberations of the often unintended consequences that legislation can pose. Here, in considering the resolution's unintended consequences, I simply believe the potential harms outweigh the benefits. I want to state specifically, I'm concerned with the messaging that we would be sending by allowing our Chamber of Commerce to decide who receives funds or who doesn't. This sounds like, to me, it will reek of potential corporatism, and those are not values that I wish to see Washington County embody. Also, to my personal understanding, the needs of our food banks and shelters are being met by the altruism of our local citizens and charities. It's unclear what the net benefit will be in adding to the existing surplus of resources that are being offered. A greater concern, in my opinion, is the long-term financial impact that this could have on our county reserves. COVID-19 has wrecked our finances, and I don't think any economist can, with a straight face, tell you the short-term or the long-term impacts that this has had. The potential mismanagement of our county reserves can have a long-term impact on our county being able to efficiently offer many of our day-to-day resources that allows our county to prosper and even function and help others. For those reasons, I'm asking the county tonight, when it comes to agenda item 12, to vote no at this time. As the financial stability of our county becomes more evident and clear, I think it is worth revisiting and considering the conversation and discussing the efficiency of our county's resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nick. Can we see if Ms. Rush is available? Ms. Trudy Rush, can you hear?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead and state your name and your city, and then go ahead and comment.
I'd just like to see the CARES Act be used to take care of the people in need right now because of this.
Ms. Trudy,
Yeah.
what city are you in?
Fayetteville.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'd like to see this money be used toward the people who are hurting right now, that are going hungry, have lost jobs, they need help, and that's what the CARES Act money was intended for. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trudy. We're gonna do another Zoom and then we'll come back to the chair here. On Zoom, we have, who's up?
Lou Sharp.
Ms. Lou Sharp, go ahead, tell us your name and what city.
Yes, my name is Lou Reed Sharp. I live on Steel Road in Springdale, Arkansas. And today I submitted the names of two common sense Latino men to Governor Asa Hutchinson for the JP4 vacancy. In fact, they're in the Zoom meeting and hope to address the court. The citizens of District 4 elected a moderate Democrat, and we hope that Judge Wood and the governor will consider a JP that represents the citizens it serves, a district which 10 years ago was over 36% Latino. The Quorum Court is charged with public service and the appointment of a representative that looks like downtown Springdale would heal many wounds exacerbated by the pandemic. The Quorum Court represents its people, not the political party of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lou. Mr. Maynard, go ahead. You have the floor. State your name and city.
Joe Maynard in Fayetteville. And I was really shocked when the first gentleman spoke, because as he first started to speak, I thought he was talking about me. But besides, put that aside, I wanted to address the First Amendment right that judges and county attorneys all enjoy in this country to have a First Amendment aside from their duties. Evidently, judges that rule in cases often have political party affiliations and promises made to political organizations. So I think the unfair characterization of the county attorney in this case is more personal than reality. I think from what I've gathered in this, in the issue of the CARES funds, is we're given false choice, like is often the case. We give a false choice. Either you give this money to these people or you hate those people and you don't care about people. That's another false choice. It's nothing new. It's something that we all should be used to by now, and that's a means to an end for some. As a county government, you're charged with making choices about money. You made choices early on in the pandemic to spend money, and you did it wisely and early. And I think it's prudent to consider the money that is coming from the federal government should be used to replenish the money that you've already spent before they came to the party. That would be my suggestion. And as my representatives, I'd like for you to make that choice. But you know, you make choices all the time. Do we buy new radios or do we give housing support? Well, law enforcement is a duty of government. Giving people food and shelter is not the role of government, in my view. You know, I'm often reminded of Calvin Coolidge, one of my heroes. And to paraphrase him somewhat, is that there's nothing easier than giving away somebody else's money. It takes no effort whatsoever, and you can feel as virtuous as anyone by doing so. But let's think about where this money comes from. It comes from, number one, it comes from taxpayers. This money doesn't exist. I think some of you that are maybe a little long in the tooth, like myself, realize that economics have cycles. And I, for one, think that there's going to be a significant downturn in the economy over the next few years, and we better save for that rainy day. Now, this money, 4.7, 7.1, 43, this is all, you can choose to believe that it is borrowed money, or you can choose to believe that it's somebody else's money, it's the federal government, and if somebody doesn't use it, we will. Or if we don't use it, somebody else will.
All right, Mr. Maynard, need to wrap it up.
30 trillion in debt cannot be paid back. Do you want to be part of the problem or part of the solution? Be the adults in the room. Save this money for a rainy day. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the Zoom again. Who do we have?
We have James McCarty.
James McCarty. Go ahead, the floor is yours. State your name and your city.
Hi, this is James McCarty, Fayetteville resident. I'm speaking on behalf of Beaver Water District. We are opposed to agenda item number 9 as it now stands, and believe that the RV park should have a lower density than what is currently proposed. So we want to not see the CUP go forward in its current version, and would like the owners of the RV park to reduce the density of their proposed park. Thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. James Party. Go ahead, state your name and
My
city.
name is Laura Phillips. I live in South Fayetteville. And for the last year, I've been helping with a community-started, community-led food pantry that is operating out of a friend's garage right now. We've done that with donations from the community. We don't have 501c3 status, so we haven't accepted any money because we can't. But my point is that it's not like some made-up thing that people are hurting and struggling. I've done this for the last 370 days. I get requests every day from people that need help with rent, need help with utilities, need help with medicine, need help with transportation, and food. Food is one of the basic human needs. And to hold up money and not want to help people who are your constituents who live in this county. Nobody is making up a need for food and shelter. It's not a partisan thing. It's basic human privilege and need, and a lack of respect if we're not able to help those people if we can. I was raised Christian, no matter what other people might say because of some of my political leanings. But I want to do unto others as I would have them do unto me. And for me, that is, I will help people when I can, and to sit in a place of power and look down on people and say that we can use money, something, we're gonna keep it for a rainy day when there's more people hungry. It just doesn't make any sense. And so I really hope that you will open your hearts and listen to the Lord and listen to that still soft voice in your head that is his voice, and do the right thing and release that money and give it to places that will need it and get it to people who need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lyon. Any other citizen comments? Yeah, 30 seconds. Go ahead, tell us your name and where you're from.
Yes, my name is Reverend Terry Gosnell. Sorry. My name is Reverend Terry Gosnell, and I serve Trinity United Methodist Church on Sycamore and Garland. I believe in the gospel, and the gospel of Christ focuses on abundance. And just like the disciples, when there were 5,000 people that were hungry, you know, they were saying, send them home, let them go home. And we can relate to that. Go to Walmart, you know. We don't have enough food. But in the Gospel of John, it was very clear that a chain reaction started when a young boy shared what he had. And then all kinds of people opened up their baskets, and they had 12 baskets of leftovers. And Jesus looked through the lens of abundance. And I pray that we will be a county that is led by not scarcity and not fear of doing too much or too little, but to truly embrace our neighbors, because that is the great commandment that Jesus gives us, to love God and to love our neighbors as ourselves. And I just thank you for your service, but I plead with you to use as many resources as you have to increase vaccinations in schools and ventilation and housing insecurity. We've increased at Trinity our budget $16,000 for the food pantry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Abundance.
All right, with that, item number 6, approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes. Go ahead, J.P. Lenny.
Approval of minutes. Make a motion to approve.
And a second, by J.P. Johnson. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Item 7, we go to the judge's report. You should have a disposal report in your packet. One to share Fayetteville Housing Authority. So someone just mentioned about the housing and rental assistance. The county received $7.1 million in rental assistance, and to which Springdale Housing Authority and Fayetteville Housing Authority received $1.5 million. Fayetteville sent a note this afternoon that they have dispersed $152,397 since as of March 16th, so that'd be Tuesday. Assisted over 38 households at this time, and averaged about $4,000 per household. And that's Fayetteville Housing Authority. Springdale is still working on that. As soon as we get their report, we'll share that with you. And in fact, we're looking to see a much more in-depth report and make that available to you guys in April. It has been over a year since this pandemic started. In fact, it was around this time last year, about a week ago, that it hit the area, hit Arkansas. And yet the state, the country, and the county is still working through how to address COVID-19. And the good thing is there's now 3 vaccines to get folks vaccinated. More companies are being lined up to be approved. In fact, in the next couple of weeks, we should see another company, and then thereafter another company being approved to have vaccines out. So the vaccines are out. Additionally, the governor shared last week, early this week, that there's a vaccine availability now for the 1C phase, if you're following that. Again, more vaccines coming, more companies doing that, and more vaccines being pushed throughout the country. The need to go ahead and get more people vaccinated has been pushed forward. There's a 1-800 number, a COVID-19 scheduling hotline. So if you or you know of a neighbor who's in need of a vaccine, they can call 1-800-985-6030. Again, 1-800-985-6030. Again, that's so they can call the COVID scheduling hotline and schedule their vaccine. We've also posted that on our website. Many of you are aware that President Biden signed the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan last week. And I chair and sit on some national county committees and chair some of those. And one of our charges has really been over the past year since the pandemic started was really trying to get the federal government to work with Congress and influence policies that would impact and help counties. And one of the things was, how do you get the opportunity to have the counties directly receive funds from the federal government as opposed to going through the states, which is causes red tape and delay and lag in getting the funds down to the local governments. It was heard, and so the federal government is now, with this American Rescue Plan, will have monies going directly to counties across the country, as well as they are now also saying for some of the cities, they will be able to apply directly. In this American Rescue Plan, Washington County was likely to see about $46 million come to the county to address all types of needs in regard to meeting the local government needs as far as COVID and COVID-related issues. Springdale will receive about $20 million. Fayetteville will receive about $20 million. So Northwest Arkansas and the state of Arkansas will be receiving in the coming 60 days funds to address a lot of the local needs and address some of those things that we're seeing and hearing across, right, today obviously in the county, but what we're seeing and hearing across the country. The Department of Treasury is still working through the specifics. They're still working through all the nuances. They're working particularly on those mechanisms and those reporting requirements, because at the end, we still have to have T's crossed, I's dotted. We in Washington County is every year we're audited by the federal government because we do get federal dollars from the feds, and they want to make sure again that those monies are being used exactly for what has been asked for. And so we will have monies coming to Northwest Arkansas and across the state, which leads me to my final comment. I have a Foundling Day coming up in a couple of days, and the Foundling Day is again is the day the person is found. It's not my birthday; it's the day that I was found. I don't have a birthday. I don't know what that is, and so this CARES discussion is really near and dear to me because I was one of these foster care kids. I was one of these orphans, and so the discussion that we're having is near and dear to me. And I know it's near and dear to many of our citizens in Washington County. It's near and dear to all these JPs who have a heart for this. They don't want to see their family and their friends, their neighbors, their coworkers to go without. And so that's why they're doing what they do. That's why they chose to come into these type of positions to help. Again, the federal government provided reimbursement. They provided unemployment assistance. And now they're looking at how can we do more to help support local governments. And so here's where we are. Again, I have a heart for this. I know our JPs do, and as well as you as citizens, to use these funds. When these come, they will have some direct guidelines, some direct intentions for how they're to be used. And again, that will be forthcoming. I imagine half of it will be issued for this year. Another half of that will be submitted to the cities and the counties next year. But again, the work of it will be to support and work with whether it be our schools and our mobile vaccinations. It will be all those type of things that will come down, and we'll have that in the coming days. And so, again, as I reflect, as I always do around this time, there's people out there who are looking to mentor, looking to tutor, looking to help those who are in foster care, who are in orphans, who are neglected, who are hungry, who are without homes, who are being abused by a spouse or something like that. And each and every one of you know someone like that, and each of you elected officials have worked with that. And so, again, I shared last month, the elected officials, JPs do wish to hear from you. However, the threats, the calling a name, the harassment, the foul language is not acceptable for our employees to get that. It's not acceptable really for your the elected officials or the JPs to hear that. We're not and should not be subjected to that type of behavior. And again, I'm appealing to our court. I'm appealing to our citizens to, as the pastor said, look at your abundance of your heart and share and do what is right to make Washington County the shining beacon that it is in leading the state of Arkansas. Finally, I'll say two things. One, we did get a report last night, and I think we put it out. Well, we will be putting it out. It just came out last night. Washington County in regard to transparency with our citizens. In 2018, the University of Central Arkansas and their Arkansas Center for Research and Economics started doing research in all 75 counties to see how transparent counties were with their citizens. In their first inaugural year in 2018, Washington County was ranked #1. The following year, 2019, Washington County was ranked #1 again out of 75 counties. And then last night, the word came down, and Washington County again was ranked #1, except for we were tied with Benton County, so Benton County moved up to #1 as well. And that just speaks to the fact that now you have a number of counties across the state that are really trying to do more and working with their citizens, being more transparent, making sure that their budgets are available, meetings are accessible. And again, kudos to my colleague up in Benton County for the work that they've done to get to that spot. They weren't there 2 years ago and even last year. And again, hats off to our elected officials and our employees for the work that they do to keep us, and obviously your JPs for the work that we've done to be #1 in that regard. Finally, Major Hoyt is not here. He was going to be here today. He was going to do our prayer and pledge. He's retiring, and many of you guys know him. He spent years in the police department with Fayetteville, and maybe 25, 28 years with Fayetteville, and then probably another 15 with Washington County, and now he's retiring. So if you happen to see him or you got his notes or emails, please send him a note. Thank you, Major Hoyt, for what you've done for Washington County and law enforcement. With that, we'll go ahead into item 8. Council, would you read that one by title only?
Item 8 is an ordinance denying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for 62 Motor City.
This is on its third and final reading. So JP Lemming.
I'm just going to have to say let's deny it because they haven't got all their paperwork ready, and there's just too much confusion going on with the project. So I move that we deny it.
So there's a motion on the floor to deny the CUP on item 8. And a second by JP Dennis. In there, any discussion? JP Madison?
Thank you, Judge. I think it's my understanding that we have to pass an ordinance, so I think we need to pass an ordinance that denies it. And, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I want to make sure that's what we're doing.
Mhm.
So I think you're making a motion to pass 8, because it's an ordinance to deny.
Well, but yes, and that's correct. So the ordinance is here, but and it says it's already denying it. You just ordered to pass it. All right, so you want to restate your,
To deny it.
it's already, the ordinance says that. So you just want to pass it as is.
I want to
what you-
pass the ordinance as is.
Okay,
Sorry.
JP Dennis? Is that, go ahead. Second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? JP Duncan?
I see the planning board passed this 7 members in favor, 0 against. I'd just be curious to hear from colleagues on the court what the business is not meeting, what requirements, as the county is obviously giving clearance.
The big arguments is the property was bought from a gentleman that he sold one individual 10 acres. And they've been operating a business there illegally without a CUP. And we've been arguing with them now for a month or two to get some fence up, because they've got salvage cars all around there on this 10 acres. And they've been asked to put up a fence and get their CUPs. And somewhere or another, they decided they're going to sell another individual 1 acre and put it in the corner of this property. The man that owns the property is carrying the note on the property. The people that supposedly bought this 1 acre off of these people, they have no paperwork to show they've even bought anything. And, you know, they're saying they're putting a car lot in, and on this 10 acres, they've got a building in the middle. They have probably 10 or 20 cars out back. They've got all the doors took off. They've just made a salvage yard. They're online selling parts as we speak, and they're just operating it. It's just, the paperwork is just not in line with this project. So that's why I deny it. I just say we need to deny it.
Okay, JP Duncan. Any other discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? Anybody in Zoom? All right, with that, Ms. Patty, will you go ahead and take the roll?
Sean Simons,
Yes.
Patrick Deacons,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
Sam Duncan,
Yes.
Chandra Washington,
Yes.
Eva Madison, Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Suki Hires,
Yes.
Evelyn Stafford,
Yes.
yes, Willie Lemming,
Yes.
Jim Wilson,
Yes.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Lance Johnson,
Yes.
Shannon Marty. This ordinance passes.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 9. Council, will you read that one by title only?
Item 9 is an ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for Blue Springs RV Park.
And JP Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I'd make a motion to pass item 9.
This is on his third final. So again, we have a motion to pass item 9. Is there a second?
And then,
A second by JP Johnson. Any discussion?
yeah, I would just say, I'd like to answer. We first heard this in January. If everybody remembers, this was appealed. We had some questions at that time. The condition that it be short-term rental has been added. I know there was some concern about that. I believe there was also some concern about what the water source is, and there's Springdale Water out there, Springdale Water Utilities. And then finally, I think the applicant sent us all a packet via email regarding some of the outstanding concerns. And I would just highlight to everyone that this is a conditional use permit so that they can continue the project. And that some of these questions that regarding the septic and the design of that will be answered in the
Large scale.
large scale development. So that's why my motion is passed. Thank you.
JP Hires.
Thank
and
you,
then
Judge.
JP Madison.
I just wanted to say, I was invited, as all of you were, out to the neighbor's property. And actually last weekend I went out there, ended up being out there for an hour and a half with the people that live next door to this proposed development. They showed me all over their property. We walked parts of it. They took me on their Jeep. We went down to the lake. The RV land, if any of you have been out there, I don't know if anyone else went out there, but the land for the RV park is tiny. It's about 10 acres of the 30 acres. The other 20 acres is sloped. It's wooded. And there are about 3 ravines where the water from this property, the drainage, is going to go through the neighbors, down to their wells before it hits the lakes. The Shermans, the neighbors are very concerned about adding 110 septic hookups. And though the park itself might be on city water, they have wells. And this drainage is going to go through their property before it goes to the lake. So they're very concerned about the future of their water quality and the sustainability of their wells. Additionally, we just heard from the Beaver Lake Water District, who said that they disagree with this project. They think it's too high of a density. This is zoned residential and agricultural. And I just have to say personally, I've always wanted to move out into the countryside, but I don't think I would purchase property in Washington County because I don't trust that we will uphold our zoning laws. So for those reasons, because of the time that I spent with those neighbors, because of the extensive knowledge they gave me about how this is going to impact them, I will be voting against this. Thank you.
And JP Madison, and then JP Dennis.
Thank you, Judge. I am very concerned about this project and the effect on the water quality. If the Beaver Water District opposes something, that affects all of us in this room and our drinking quality. And I will say that in the 10 years I've been on the court, Beaver Water District has never come to us that I can remember and affirmatively opposed a CUP that we were asked to accept. I also was quite alarmed to see that the packet that we got that is advocating for the passage of this CUP is from the law firm that is JP Deacons is employed by, and he's the sponsor. And I move that he be removed as the sponsor due to conflict of interest.
JP Dennis.
I apologize. I just can't talk with the mask on, so I hope that doesn't offend anybody. I too have been out there to the location, and to be quite honestly, I think it'd be a beautiful place to have an RV park. It's just a beautiful spot, and it's close to the lake. However, I saw a map, and it showed where the sewer was going to be, and it was very tiny, very small. I sent a message to them, and they messaged me back and said that on a large scale development, that would be done later. And so I would be all for it. But with that sewer not being, they're saying, well, you get to decide that later. I want it decided up front. I live by Valley View Golf Course, and I came to this court and begged them not to put in what they put in. And I was told by the Quorum Court at the time, that was years ago before anybody on here, I was told, we will back it up. We will take care of it. And now the citizens of Valley View are paying the price for it. Big price, $200 and $300 a month water bills to pay for this, to pay for the sewer to be fixed. If we have a failure like that, this close to our drinking water, we won't have problem on the street anymore because there'll be all kinds of homes empty. They can just move into any that are empty because everybody will move out because there will be no water.
That is our water source. And I've spoken before in court about city of Fayetteville dumping their sewer in it. I don't like that either. But I'm not going to change that. And maybe some of those folks out there can get it changed, but that bothers me as well. So my point is, I'm going to vote no because I don't have a guarantee that they're going to do what they said they were going to do on the large scale development. I'd love to see it be an RV park. I think it'd be good in that respect. But I also will say this. I drove around and looked at RV parks when I was wanting to study this out a little bit. And what I see is that RV parks are a place to live now. You go to Cave Springs up on 112 and they park there year round, all year, every spot's taken. And so if you don't have a sewer system to handle it, then everybody's going to come in there with a 30 or 40, 50 gallon tank that's full and they've been waiting to dump it and they finally get hooked up to the sewer, they're going to dump it. Well, that's 50, 60, 70 people. And you require me as someone who lives in the country to have a full acre for a septic tank. One family, a septic tank, 1 acre. So theoretically, you would need, if you're going to have 70 spots, you'd need 70 acres just to have the lateral lines be able to handle it. And I took one day and went with some professionals that put in sewer systems, and they taught me a lot about it. And it can be done, and it can be done properly. But I will not vote for something that might come about. I've seen that. I've seen what happens when you do that. And so I'm not against them putting it out there. I'm not against building. I'm not against using your land to the best ability or what the ability you want to use it for. But I am against not being able to regulate the sewer. Thank you.
Thank you, JP Dennis. JP Deacons. And then JP Simons. Well, JP Simons first, and then we'll go back to JP Deacons.
I'm wondering, does this issue come back before the quorum court after the LSD?
No. JP Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I think, I can understand maybe the concerns about water quality, but we have a question before us of, do we punish the applicant for the process? The process in the county is that we would approve the CUP, and let's remember that the studies and the costs associated with this project there will be additional costs after they get their CUP. I don't know that it's my job as the court to insert myself into being an expert on water quality or septic system design when all that will be designed and approved by both the county and, my understanding, is the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality. So I have a real problem. Yes, there are concerns about that, but the applicant is going to have to prove that there is a process that goes on beyond this in terms of LSD. And that's what kind of concerns me is, are we going to step in and as a court and deny a CUP when the process is laid out that the applicant has adhered to? I mean, there is a process laid out. As far as accusations about my conflict, I am not an attorney. I work for a sister company of RMP called Peritum Accounting and Consulting. I'm a CPA. I'm sure that most people, well, maybe not most people realize, but it is against any kind of legal ethics for a non-attorney to participate in any of the profits of the firm. I don't have a financial conflict here at all. And I would also add that RMP is a large law firm, and I consider that very seriously. If I felt like I had a conflict, I'd remove myself. So I felt like I needed to defend that. Thank you, Judge Wood.
I don't know if Nathan is on. Is Crouch on? Director Crouch, will you speak to I just want to make sure so again, if approved, it still has to go to large scale development, and then you still have ADQ and Department of Water that has to approve any they've already approved some stuff, some parts of this, correct? But then it will go back to them? Walk
Yes,
through-
sir. It would, once the applicant gets the CUP nailed down, that's whenever.
Speak up some, Director Crouch.
Once the applicant gets the CUP approved, that's whenever they'll go ahead and start doing the septic system design and get that run through all of its paces and get all of those approvals. And before the RV park would be able to open for business, inspections would have to be made by the health department and then everybody, the water department, the health department, the county offices, we'd all have to sign off on the large scale site plan. And so indeed, there are still several approvals to go past the CUP level.
Thank you. Any other discussion? JP Pine? Pull the mic down some so we can hear you. Can you hear me now? No.
No, it's gotta be red.
Talk up some, but JP Pine.
Your mic. Let him speak into yours, yeah.
My mic not working? No.
Here, get the one behind you.
Make it work at all. My question was, I know you can hear me now. Okay. Nathan answered my questions. But what I was about to say is, and I assumed, and he's made it quite clear that even though if we approve this tonight, it still has to pass through the health department, the ADEQ, and all these other. We're passing this upon the approval of all these different CUPs. I mean, all these different requirements by different departments. And maybe if Nathan's still listening, you've addressed the concerns of the neighborhood by adding CUP, different conditions to this CUP. Is that correct, Nathan?
Yes, sir. We've looked at compatibility on several different levels and applied what we felt would be helpful in mitigating some of the impact, as well as looked at some of the previous RV parks that we've reviewed for CUP and made sure that we looked at some of those conditions to see if any of those applied as well. You know, just not trying to reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, each project is different. And so we try to look at it from both sides like that.
Okay, thank you. In order to work with the system, I cannot vote no because I can't see the entire development, because there's no point in the developer continuing and completing the development if it's not going to pass. It's, you know, I don't know which comes first, but or what should come first, but if we need to change the system, you know, very well, it may be something to be worked on. But in the meantime, I can't vote no because I think the system is flawed for somebody to have use of their private property. Thank you.
Thank you, JP Pine. Any other discussion? JP Dennis?
Call the
JP Johnson?
previous question.
All right, we had discussion. We got to go to public comments then. Public comments. We'll public comments. We'll take one here and then we'll go on Zoom. Mr. Sherman, state your name again. And
Shannon Sherman. I live in Springdale, and I've addressed the Quorum Court twice, discussing the water supply, dangerous curve. We've talked about potential increase for crime, et cetera. And there's a simple process, Judge Deakins, or JP Deakins, to me, and it's listed agriculturally zoned, 1 unit per acre. That keeps it simple. The property owner, when he purchased that property, he was aware of that. He's still aware of it today. He'll be aware of it tonight. I know that sounds belittling. I don't mean it to be that way. It's very simple. What's fair is this. He doesn't live in that community. Those 35 members that signed that appeal that I sent to each one of you, they live there. They'll be there tonight. They're going to be there tomorrow. They'll be there the next day. He's not going to be affected by the RV park. His family will benefit from it. He's the only one that will benefit, but he doesn't live there. We do. And if any of you drove by my property, you're going to go right by that park. If you come from 412, you're going to take a left to my sign or my driveway, my mailbox, and you're going to pass those RV parks. After you've already passed the one on the ridge, Bluffs Ridge, whatever it's called, River's Edge, excuse me. There's one 2 miles down the road, Pilgrim's Crest, Rest, whatever they're called. When is enough enough? What about the people that live there every day, that have been paying their taxes, that are not dumping sewage on 10 acres, who are respecting their property, who live there every single day? I know I keep saying that and saying it, but here's the bottom line. The process is there. 1 unit per acre. How's that not fair? He bought that property same as I bought mine. The only difference is I didn't know an RV park was going to go there. I didn't know that. So when I speak to you, I'm speaking from the heart. I'm a 6-year rookie. There are people behind me that have been there for 50-something years. They know more about my property than I do. They didn't even get a letter. They didn't even get notified this was coming. Another gentleman's been there 20 years. He lives next door to me. His backyard touches my pasture. He didn't get a letter to be notified about this. I had to tell him. I respect every one of you. You have a tough decision to make because someone's wanting you to vote no, someone's wanting you to vote yes. But I'm going to tell you what, if you went home tonight and you put your head on the pillow and you look at your wife, or your kids, or your property, and you realize potentially if one person came with each camping spot, that's 111 people that are going to be next door to you that you don't know. You don't know where they're coming from and what their motives are. Then go get a $90 pair of binoculars and look at your property and know when you leave your home. Every single time your car door shuts, they can hear it and they can look and see when you're gone. That can happen in the middle of town. It shouldn't happen on the property where I live. 1 unit per acre, that's it. Not 200-something people. But I'll finish with it again. That's how it's zoned. And if you're going to vote your conscience, you can simply vote what's the process, what's on paper, 1 unit per acre. That's it. Yes, it's going to affect our water. I don't leave you this, I promise you. When you look at the elevation of that property, it's 1,350 feet. Yeah, it's 2,000 feet from the lake. But when you look at those ravines, you can be 2 miles from the lake, or you can be 20 feet from the lake. If you're on flat ground, it's probably going to soak in. But where I live, it's washed my road out 6 times since I've lived there, behind my barn. That water is smoking through those ravines. Again, you can be on flat ground and it's going to absorb. But where we live, when it comes to rain, that asphalt, changing oil, vomit, whatever's out there, anything that hits the ground at this proposed park is going to make it to the lake. And if you don't believe me, before you vote tonight, whatever you have to do, vote no, let him appeal. Then you come out there to the property and you look and you'll see exactly what I said tonight's true.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman.
Thank you, sir.
Public comments. Go to Zoom. Is that Larry?
McCready.
Mr. Larry, go ahead, tell us your name and what city you're from.
Can you all hear me? My name's Larry McCready. I'm an attorney. I represent the developer, and I submitted the packet. A lot of the points I want to make have been covered, but I want to stress a few things. The 2 most serious concerns I think that I've heard from the JPs, as well as Mr. Sherman, is the concerns about the septic system and then the surface runoff or the stormwater runoff. And this really is a question of process. My client has not done those studies yet. It's not because he doesn't want to. It's not because he's trying to hide information or can't get it done. It's a question of dollars and cents. Those are expensive to undertake. And he certainly is willing to do it, but he doesn't want to invest that money on the front end of the process when he doesn't know if he's even going to get the conditional use permit. And so I just asked the court and the JPs to consider that process. He is committed to following it. He is committed to doing everything necessary to get the approvals that are required. And that includes getting approval from the State Department of Health for his septic design. And as was indicated, if it's approved, if it can't get approved, then the project's dead. He can't put that in there without approval from the State Health Department. There will be inspections to make sure that it's installed properly. So there is protection there for that. They're same with the surface water runoff. I understand Mr. Sherman's concern about surface runoff, but there will have to be a stormwater pollution prevention plan and permit that's approved by the State Department of Environmental Quality. Again, that is an expensive process. It's one my client knows he has to go through, but he doesn't want to invest that money if he's not even going to be given the opportunity to proceed by having this conditional use permit granted. So I ask, don't penalize him for not having that information available right now. He will get it. If he can't, then the project, it simply will not proceed. All of that is part of the large scale development process. And as I tried to point out in the packet, it says it right within the county's application process. And so those are the two big things that I know there are concerns. They're concerns for everyone. They're concerns for my client, but they will have to be addressed or the project will not ever be completed. It won't be allowed to be improved. So the issue about security as well, I understand it. My client has indicated, he said repeatedly that there will be no one more than 30 days will be allowed to stay there continuously. This is designed to be an upscale, like a resort. This is not designed to be a permanent residence for people, and it won't allow it to take place. That's against my client's interests. It's not what he wants to do, and he can be prohibited from doing that by the conditions put in this permit. And so those are not things that you guys are taking a leap of faith on and hope that they'll happen. They will have to happen. And allow me just to respectfully address what Mr. Sherman said about
quickly, Mr. Larry.
For 6 years.
Mr. McCready.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and wrap that up.
I will. I would just say this project has been approved twice before by the Quorum Court in 2012 and 2014. Mr. Sherman knew of this approval, or he should have. It was public record when he bought the property. So I don't think it's fair to say that he bought this property and had no idea there would be an RV park there. He had notice of it then, and I would respectfully submit he was aware of it. And so I thank the court for its time.
McCready. Thank you very much. Go ahead, state your name and where you're from.
Clint Schneckloth. I'm here in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and it's great to see people I've been emailing so frequently in person. So nice, and thanks for letting me speak. The LLC that Patrick Deacons works for exists exclusively to serve RMP. And so I think as a quorum court, you really have to give some thought to whether you want to be proceeding the way you are, because what I'm seeing is significant conflict of interest on the part of a JP. Not only is he here ready to vote with all of you, which would already be a conflict of interest. I serve on multiple boards and am the pastor of a church that has a board. And we all fill out like conflict of interest paperwork, and we're way more careful than what you're talking about here. I mean, we're talking about a gentleman who all of his personal financial interests and income are related to working for an entity that works exclusively for this project. And you're not only letting him vote on it, but you're actually letting him sponsor what's coming. That's really problematic. And it's more problematic than just about JP Deacons. It's more of a systematic thing. Like, do you think that engenders trust by the constituents of Washington County when you have something that's coming before the Quorum Court where there's obvious conflict of interest over against residents of the county? So I'm just pointing that out. You're gonna get whatever you get, but I don't know what you guys do for conflict of interest paperwork, but every other organization I either work for or volunteer with or lead, we fill out paperwork at the beginning of our term, And this would be a clear conflict of interest. He shouldn't have even said anything about the project at all to begin with, let alone sponsor it.
Thank you. Public comments. We'll go to Zoom.
I can be 2 seconds, sir.
Let Mr. Sherman, we're going to Zoom.
I'd like to respond to this comment when I can, sir.
Sherry Main, you're on, can you hear?
Yes, Judge Wood, thank
All
you.
right, go ahead, state your name and where you're from.
Okay, Sherry Main, 15574 Riches Road, Fayetteville. And I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I had commented before about this particular issue with the putting another unit or another land up there for this type of rental for motorhomes or whatever, RVs. But I wanted to state something that everybody was mentioning, DEQ. DEQ will process and monitor the permits it issues. And from my understanding, a stormwater permit would be the only thing that would be required for this, which would be a SWP3. And also any complaints that they're driven from the neighbors. If after this is issued and they have stormwater permit issues or stormwater runoff issues that are affecting their adjacent land, it would be only complaint driven to ADEQ by submitting a complaint. And then an inspection would occur after that. So it's kind of after the fact of them getting the permit. Another thing is on the inspections for the septic tank and system, lateral lines, and so forth. Those inspections are done by someone who is just licensed through the state health department. There's a whole list of different people that come and do those. As long as they're licensed, they can stamp an inspection on it and you're good to go. Another thing is on the short term only, on the rentals, no one can stay over 30 days. Who will monitor the vacancies to assure the same person doesn't just renew another 30-day stay or move from lot 20 over to lot 10 and stay another 30 days because they're not on the same lot, they've moved to another one. That's kind of a little gray in my opinion. And in the past, from all of the Quorum court meetings that I've watched and the procedures of a CUP and a LSD, which is large scale development, normally both of those are approved through the Quorum court. Sometimes they're the applicant's cup and large scale development are heard back to back on at the same time because they already have the plan laid out, the permits in process, kind of not getting your cart before your horse. If you can't get a permit through ADEQ for stormwater permit, then you're backed up. I don't see any problems getting anything inspected or done that they need to do, but it's just the compliance issues and the monitoring. I speak from experience. There's no compliance over it except for just complaint driven. And those are just from inspections and then slaps on the hands and until it just gets repetitive. And then finally, maybe a penalty from the DEQ or from whichever enforcing agency. So I just think once it's a done deal, there's very little monitoring done except for just a complaint driven from neighbors around the area that are seeing it on a day-to-day issue, causing damage to their property.
Ms. Sherry, I need you to go ahead and wrap up.
Okay, that was all. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there for a little better understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry Main. Public comment time is done. At this point, we'll go ahead and ask Ms. Patty to take the roll. The public comment time is done. The ordinance is to ratify the conditional use permit for the Blue Springs RV Park. With that, Ms. Patty, go ahead and take the roll.
Sean Simons,
Yes.
Patrick Deakins,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
Sam Duncan,
Yes.
Shonda Washington,
No.
Eva Madison, Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Suki Hires,
No.
Evelyn Rio Stafford,
No.
Willie Lemming, Jim Wilson,
Yes.
Butch Pond,
Abstain.
Lance Johnson,
Yes.
Shannon Marty. I have 8 for, 4 against, and 2 abstentions.
One more time, you have what?
8 for and 4 against and 2 abstentions, so it passes.
All righty. Item 9 passes. Item 10, council, will you read that one by title only?
Item 10 is an ordinance appropriating $176,368.57 from the Coronavirus Relief Fund to various line items in the jail budget for 2021.
And JP Deacons?
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is on its third and final reading. As you know, the detention center is asking for a body scanner. I think I've went through this a couple times, but this will be similar to what is at the airport when you go through security, if you've ever been through that. So it'll be a 3D body scanner. This will cut down on the person-to-person contact with detainees within the detention center. And also the detention center wanted to highlight that this will have uses that are directly beneficial during the pandemic, but it will also be beneficial post-pandemic in that right now, if somebody is hiding contraband, especially internally, they have to take that, and that individual is suspected of that, they have to take them to the hospital and get X-ray imaging done. This will help within that. I know that many of you guys have, or many of the JPs, excuse me, have challenged the sheriff to go find additional funds in his budget to help mitigate some of these costs. I think you guys received an email. We all received an email from Chief Deputy Cantrell this week, offering some additional funds to help offset that. You know, this item is directly related to the next item, item number 11 on the agenda. And I do think, I applaud the Sheriff's Department for doing that. And I think those funds will be useful and need to be applied to some of this. I see these particular funds as being directly attributable to the pandemic and relief from the pandemic. So I would like to, I make a motion to approve this item as written, and we can apply the additional funds to the next item. And I'm prepared to make amendments to the next item. So thank you.
All right, so we have a motion to approve item 10 and a second by JP Pond. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Go ahead, tell us who you are and where you're from.
I'm usually quiet on these, so I'll try to pull that off. Sarah Moore, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I know that there's been conversation about this item on a couple of meetings now, and I know there was some discussion about not only the sheriff's office going back and looking at their budget, which I'm very appreciative that they did that and they were able to come forward with some funds, but additionally, there are a lot of grant mechanisms out there. The Department of Justice has been very robust in providing lots of opportunities for equipment and special training. And so I know many of us have gotten things from Kirk Lane, who is the drug director of the state, who also part of his role is with law enforcement, that we've provided those to the grants office. And I just wondered if there would be any discussion tonight about what's been explored as far as other opportunities for grant funding so that we potentially could leave these coronavirus CARES money relief funds maybe available for other avenues and maybe use these other grants that are out there as an opportunity for purchasing equipment. If we could discuss that, I'd be very appreciative of what we've been able to find and what grants we've actually looked into so far. I know I've sent 2 personally to the grants administrator and I haven't heard anything back. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Moore. Zoom, we're going to go to Colleen Gaston. Did I say that right? Colleen Gaston?
Yes, Judge Wood. My name's Colleen Gasson. I work for Beaver Water District, and I actually had my hand raised throughout the Blue Springs RV public comment period, but I was not recognized. So I guess that's why I'm being called on now.
Go ahead, what's your comment?
On the Blue Springs RV?
No, no, on the body scan. Do you have anything on the body scan?
I have nothing on the body scan. I do have some thoughts that, I guess for future reference, if it's too late for the Blue Springs RV, but I would say on this issue of whether it's appropriate for the quorum court to consider and ask for more specifics on wastewater treatment, then yes, it is. Yes, the
Okay, Ms.
DEQ or
Colleen, I think we have our director on, and again, I appreciate that comment. Please share that with Director Crouch. Did you hear that, Director Crouch? That we will just go ahead and make sure that we continue to work with our water, whether it be Beaver or the other, obviously, the DEQ, Department of Health.
Yes.
Public comments. Thank you.
A matter of what the quorum court does, though. The staff is very good about working with us, I will say that. But it's when it comes to the quorum court for decision, I think it's appropriate to take into consideration that there can be special circumstances, situations where the quorum court may want more information before making its CUP decision. And this is one of those where you've got unique topography, high density, proximity to your drinking water source, and the knowledge that, as JP Dennis said, that these systems get permitted, and then the problem is with operation and maintenance oftentimes.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Gaston. We got to move on. Thank you very much. Public comments regarding the ordinance on the body scanners. Ms. Gladys Tiffany, you recognized?
Thank you. This is Gladys Tiffany. I'm from Fayetteville. I'd like to include this reminder that if anything would be, you can call anything CARES Act that you want to, but body scanners for the jail does not fit on my list in any way, shape, or form. And if you're going to deny help to people, desperate people going homeless and hungry in our community, it's a very serious thing to choose to do body scanners for the jail instead. I really believe that when the cities get money to help their people, the people in the county will still have a great deal of need that this body could be addressing, and it really should be addressing. And the fact that we used $100,000 to buy scanners for the jail is not the kind of assistance that they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Tiffany. Public comments. Ms. Phyllis Tiella?
Phyllis Tavella.
Go ahead, you're recognized. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
Yes, Phyllis Tavella from Fayetteville. I'm sorry, I lived in Fayetteville, from Prairie Grove, Arkansas. Body scanners, by any stretch of the imagination, are a budgeted item, and that should have been included in the budget or be included in the next budget. But just because you have money available and you've been told, I believe falsely over and over, that you can use it for absolutely anything, that is not the case. And you are nickel and diming that money out instead of handing it out in a proper manner to the people who need it. If you need suggestions on how to disperse the monies in the CARES Act instead of body scanners, then ask for a group of people to volunteer to give you suggestions. There are plenty of people out here who could use the money that you're attempting to pass on to buy a body scanner, could use it to survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Phyllis. We're going to go here and then we'll go back to Zoom. Go ahead, Kyle.
Thank you, Judge. Kyle Smith again, Fayetteville. This would not be my preferred way to put the CARES Act funding to use. However, I can definitely see the benefit of going contactless in the pandemic of a very high contact interaction. It's plausible. It's a acceptable use, I think. And as far as nickel and diming, this comes out to just under 4% of your CARES fund. That means there's a whole lot left over where this came from. And so if this is a chosen use, then I hope it comes with a commitment to use the rest of the funding in ways that perhaps assist more people more directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kyle. Anyone else on Zoom? Any other public comments? All right, with that, Ms. Patty, will you take the roll?
Sean Simons. Yes. Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington.
No.
Eva Madison.
No.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
No.
Evelyn Rio Stafford.
No.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Jim Wilson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Shannon Marty. I have 10 for, 4 against. This ordinance passes.
All right, the ordinance passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 11, council, will you read that one by title only?
Item 11 is an ordinance appropriating $298,050.96 from the Coronavirus Relief Fund to various line items in the sheriff's budget for 2021.
JP Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I have brought and I will reference Chief Deputy Cantrell's email that you all received. The Sheriff's Department received $96,000 from a sale of an airplane that they owned. They also have offered to reprogram $100,000 from their SCAP grant reimbursement for training to this particular cause. And so I would like to, in addition, they say that they think they could take their remaining funds out of Fund 5800, which is court fines and fees. So if you will bear with me, I would like to make a motion to amend this ordinance. By my math, I'm going to take the original $298,050.96 requested in the ordinance. I'm going to subtract from that the $96,000 surplus from the airplane and the $100,000 from the reprogram of the SCAP grant. So I would like to strike in the title of the ordinance, starting with on line 11, $298,050.96 from the Coronavirus Relief Fund to various line items. I would like to strike that to $102,050.96 from the court fines and fees account number 5800 to the small equipment line item in the sheriff budget for 2021. In addition to that, I would like to go down and put similar language into Article 1 to match the title. I'm striking the small equipment line to be $102,050.96. And I would move to strike lines 35 from 41. So to recap, I'm updating the amount from the court fines and fees to $102,050.96. And for simplicity, I'm allocating that to the small equipment line item and striking the other line items that were requested from the ordinance.
Okay, we got an amendment to the ordinance. Council, you want to read that one more time as the title only now? Or we'll go ahead and read the whole thing.
The ordinance will be an appropriation ordinance, be it enacted by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance appropriating $102,050.96 from the court fines, fees, and costs line item to various budget line items in the sheriff's budget for 2021. Whereas the Washington County Sheriff's Office desires to improve the safety of both the community and its officers, and whereas the Washington County Sheriff's Office desires to promote transparency in the day-to-day interactions between the community and its officers. And whereas in furtherance of those desires, the Washington County Sheriff's Office seeks to purchase body-worn cameras for deputies assigned to patrol and detention. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas. Article 1, there is hereby appropriated $102,050.96 from the Court Fines and Fees Cost Fund in the General Fund to the following line items in the Sheriff's budget for 2021. Small equipment, line item 1,0400.2002 in the amount of $102,050.96.
All right, we have amended ordinance. Is there a second? Second by JP Lemming. Discussion. JP Madison, and then, JP Madison.
Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to say to the men and women of the Sheriff's Office, I support these purchases. I support the scanner. I support the cameras. I don't support them being used out of CARES funds. And so I wanted you all to know that if this were coming out of the general fund and unappropriated reserves, you would see a different vote from me. But I can't in good conscience use CARES funds when we're not willing to spend CARES funds on helping people. And I just wanted to explain my vote there because it's been very hard. I've heard loud and clear from the people in my district that they don't want to see the CARES funds used for these purposes, but they're not necessarily opposed to having the county pay for them. So I just wanted to say that.
JP Simon.
Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to make a comment and thank Chief Deputy Jay Cantrell for hearing mine and JP Johnson's request to do his due diligence and look within their budgets to come up with additional funds. And I appreciate him doing so.
All righty, JP Pond.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, JP Pond, I turned it on.
Hear me now?
There you go.
There it is. I just wanted to say that and put myself in the place of, a worker down at the jail who's quite in a vulnerable position during this COVID time, or anyone that's incarcerated, arrested and brought down there and having to go through this process. I might then believe that it was appropriate to use this money coming from the CARES Act. There are other things that pertain to that situation at the jail, where this COVID virus it's a more serious issue possibly than any place else in the county. And so I completely see the reason this could be used for this purpose. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Public comments? Oh, no, that's it. Well, sorry, we just got the motion here. Oh, okay. Go ahead, JP Stafford, Rio Stafford.
Thank you, Judge. I actually also wanted to echo what JP Simon said and give a thanks to Mr. Cantrell for working with the Quorum Court to find search for additional sources of money. And I just wanted to clarify, especially because I've gotten messages as we've been discussing this from a couple of constituents who just wanted us to clarify whether there will or will not be CARES Act funds now with this amended ordinance used for this purpose.
What was the question again? Will there be?
Money from the CARES Act fund. It seems there are some members of the public who are confused about the final funding source of this. So if that could
For
just
this one,
be reiterated.
I think they just amended that one to go to the court fines and fees fund, which would not be CARES.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
All right. So we have a amended appropriate, a motion to amend. We had a second by JP. Was that Lemming? Okay. Do we do all in favor? Those opposed? All right. Now on the motion to amend, JP Deacons, on the main, on the appropriation, on the motion.
Yes, I would move to pass ordinance as amended.
Got a motion by JP Deacons, a second by JP Lemming. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? All right, Bobby Hill first, and then we'll go ahead to Sarah Moore.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes, go ahead, sir. Treasurer Hill.
Thanks, Judge Wood. Just want to make sure that 5,800 court cost and fines fund was closed like in September of last year because it was a debt service fund and the historic courthouse was paid off. And so that fund no longer needed to exist. And the existing monies went to the general fund. This is proper, but it just needs to, if you want to get those funds, you'd have to take it out of unappropriated reserves in the general fund.
Okay, thank you, Treasurer Hill.
You're welcome.
Ms. Sarah Moore.
Hi, Sarah Moore, Fayetteville. I also too wanted to thank the Sheriff's Office for looking in their existing budget to figure out a way to be able to do the body cameras. As we all know, over this last year, there's been a lot of conversation surrounding policing and the safety in communities, and so much so that Governor Hutchison had our law enforcement task force that met. And one of the things that came out of that meeting was that one of the findings was that they thought that all jurisdictions should have body cameras. And so I only have a couple of things to add to the conversation because I'm just not sure. Legislature is still meeting right now. And so I'm not sure, with that being a finding that just came out of the task force, whether or not there's anybody that's thinking that there will be any level of like funding or there will be some level of statute that's going to come forward in the session that potentially would cover body cameras. Additionally, one of the big things that I hear talked about, especially for smaller jurisdictions, that they're concerned about the cost is actually with data storage. And so I would ask, is this money only for the equipment, the body cameras? Are we going to hear additionally in the future about storage cost? And that being another appropriation that has to happen. I would love to hear the court talk about that now and what that could look like for the total package of that. And then additionally, I'm like a broken record, but if there is money possibly coming from any of these grant areas, I know that's come up in other discussions too in other meetings, but I haven't heard any updates on whether or not there's the opportunity. Again, with this last year, Department of Justice was putting forward a lot of equipment grants in response to things that happened with the George Floyd unfortunate, the loss of his life. And so I'm just curious if we had gotten any feedback on whether or not there was potentially something coming down the pike as well from Department on Justice that could potentially cover that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Public comments.
Sarah Peace.
Ms. Sarah Peace, you're recognized. Go ahead. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Sarah Peace, and I'm a resident of District 9. I would just like to echo some of the previous comments about exploring alternative grant monies to fund these scanners in the jail. I do see the need certainly for no-touch equipment within our corrections facilities during the pandemic. However, I don't believe that the use of the CARES grants money is the most appropriate way to fund that, particularly considering that we already used a portion of those funds to cover some of the Sheriff Department's expenses. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah Peace. Public comments. Ms. Gladys Tiffany, go ahead. You're recognized.
Thank you. I'm Gladys Tiffany. I'd really like to also thank the Sheriff's Department for working to resolve this in a good way. And I also would like to thank JP Deacon for working to find ways to accommodate the needs of the community like this. And to me, this is an example of the way that we work together, and that we actually try to find ways to accommodate the needs of different sides. And at the point where the country, the community, and the county have become pretty polarized, this is a beautiful example of this actually functioning. And I'd just like to bring that out into the open so we can consider that it is possible for us to work together, and we do not have to feel like we are always at each other's throats. We're not always ready to fight about everything. We really do want to work together to make the county the best we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tiffany. Any other public comments? Any other hands in the Zoom, Ms. Patty? No. JP Deacons?
I was just going to ensure, Attorney Lester, do you think an additional amendment's needed to accommodate what Treasurer Hill was saying? I don't want this to hold up the sheriff's department anymore. You know,
So yes, so Treasurer Hill is saying that the court fines and fees account line no longer exists. When we went into the pandemic, we sold the bonds, got rid of that. But that money does exist because we had interest earned, et cetera. So now it's in general fund to be used. And so if you're going to make the amendment, I guess it would be to come out of general reserve.
yeah, I would like to amend the motion to strike the court fines and fees reference and replace it with the unappropriated general reserve.
All right, Counsel, will you read that one? Yes, just read about the title only with the change that he just amended.
The title would be an ordinance appropriating.
I missed you. I hate it. Go ahead, do it again.
The ordinance would read an ordinance appropriating $102,050.96 from unappropriated reserves of the general fund to various line items in the sheriff's budget for 2021.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Who was the second?
Before we proceed on the final motion?
Yes, that's what you.
So we're going to vote, but we have to vote on the general reserves instead of the court fines and fees.
That's correct.
So that's what we're voting on right now.
Well, we got to get the second first. We did get a second. Okay, JP Lemming. All right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, and any other discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, Ms. Patty, take the roll. It's on the motion, on the amended to come out of unappropriated reserves.
Sean Simons.
Yes.
Patrick Deacons.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Jim Wilson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Shannon Marty. Passes.
All right, now we're going to go and vote as approved as a motion. JP Deacons. Move to pass. Oh, I'm sorry.
I make a motion to move as amended. I make a motion as amended.
We have a motion to move to approve the amended appropriate ordinance, and it was a second by JP Madison. Any discussion? JP Pine?
Yes, I'd like it to be clarified. Is any part of this going to come from the CARES Act?
No.
Any part of this whatsoever?
No.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? JP Ecke?
the issue of grants money did come up, and Sheriff Helder sent us all out an email thanking Sarah Moore for the research that she did on various grants that were available. However, they are not applicable to his department. And then said, believe me, he would be the first to know before the public what grants are available for his department. And in his email, Chief Deputy Cantrell affirmed that by stating that we have not found any grants applicable to either the body scanner or the body worn cameras. Now, whatever grants are out there available for other law enforcement agencies or whatnot that Ms. Moore has researched, it is not applicable for Sheriff Helder in Washington County. And we wanted to make that clear that they are, and our grants administrator, Mrs. Lloyd, is on top of that and pretty much knows about it first than anybody else. So thank you, Judge.
Thank you, JP Eki. Any other discussion? Public comments? JP Stafford, Rio Stafford.
Thank you. Yes, I'm up here.
No
I just want, thank you, Judge. I just wanted to say that I'm in favor of body cameras. I think they're an important tool for public transparency and accountability and oversight. It's probably, we should have had them already, probably. You know, and I feel good about voting for this as amended. And I think we can, I definitely, however, want us to continue looking for grants, you know, for things like the issue with the storage of the data and different things like that. So definitely want to, you know, continue to look for alternative funding sources and things like that after the initial purchase of the body cameras. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments. Public comments. Anybody on Zoom, Ms. Patty?
I do not see any.
All right, Ms. Patty, we go ahead and take the roll.
Sean Simons.
Yes.
Patrick Dickens.
Yes.
Lisa Eki.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Evelyn Rio Stafford.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Jim Wilson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Shannon Marty. This ordinance passes.
All right, that ordinance passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 12, Council, will you read that one by title only?
Item 12 is an ordinance authorizing Washington County to allocate and distribute a portion of its award of coronavirus relief funds from the state of Arkansas for the benefit of county citizens.
And it's on the second reading, JP Madison, so there'll be no discussions unless you move it to a third reading. There's a motion to advance it and move to a third and final reading. Is that a second by you? A second by JP Washington. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right. Council, will you read that for a third and final time?
An ordinance authorizing Washington County to allocate and distribute a portion of its award of coronavirus relief funds from the state of Arkansas for the benefit of county citizens.
All right, thank you, Councilor. JP Madison.
Thank you, Judge. When I brought forth this ordinance, I don't think I quite understood the controversy that it would cause, how helping people who are hungry without housing, how that would be so wildly controversial. But I have to give credit to Pastor Clint Schneckloff for really encouraging me to see the light on this. And I wanted to apologize to him because there was a time, like I think many of us on the court have experienced with Pastor Clint, we've gotten frustrated. And I sent an email telling him to be nicer. And I think now after living with this for a few months, I understand why Pastor Clint is not always nice. It's been very frustrating. It's very frustrating that trying to help people is so controversial. But what's more is that it's so frustrating that no one else has other solutions. It's these two extremes that we've taken. My proposal was an attempt to have a starting place for a discussion, to not spend all of it, to save what I thought was a reasonable estimate of what the county had actually spent out of pocket on CARES costs, and to divide it between small business relief, food insecurity, and housing issues that were not otherwise addressed by the $7.1 million that the judge got for rental assistance. I think the part that's been most profound is the number of faith leaders who have weighed in on this issue with their support. I've heard from my own pastor. We've heard from Father Tyler at St. Joseph's Catholic Church. We've heard from Lutherans. We've heard from Methodists. And all of them are pleading with us to help our community in need. If someone has a solution that they don't want to spend all of this, speak up, but I haven't heard it. And I think where I finally arrived is, I like having more money for the county. That's great. This money in our bank account doubled our county's reserves. That's awesome. But then I find myself saying, why in the world should Washington County get to profit off of a pandemic? The federal government didn't give that money to us to build the juvenile detention center or to give the wealthy landowners in Washington County a tax break. They gave it to us to address COVID. And if the pandemic hadn't happened, we would not have this money. We wouldn't have it. So we wouldn't even be having this debate if it weren't for the pandemic. So why are we so resistant to spending this money on the needs of the pandemic? We know more money is coming. We know that the finances of the county are secure. So what are we so afraid of? I got labeled a radical liberal for proposing this. And I'll just say, at first I was like, really? I thought I've always been pretty moderate, but if feeding the hungry and helping the homeless makes me a radical liberal, then put it on my tombstone. Because that's what I want to be remembered for. And after doing this work for the years I've done it, that's what I hope I'm remembered for. And so I would just ask for you all to look in your hearts and give this a good vote tonight. And if you find yourself the least bit conflicted, saying, well, I could give a little bit of money, but not all of this, then let's bring it back and try it again next month. Let's give less. Let's do something. Thanks.
Thank you, JP Madison. JP Deacons,
Thank you, Judge Wood.
and then JP Hires.
It's not controversial to help people. And that's, we get so lost in this conversation on this is that, you know, I've been labeled that we don't want to help people. We're cold, we're calloused. And I just want everybody in the public to know that's not true at all. The pandemic's been hard on all of us. I go to bed every night worrying about how we can make our county the best and how we can take care of our citizens and make sure everybody's okay. The problem is we have, to me, in my mind, a constitutional duty to do certain things as a quorum court. One is to make sure that the county services provide for the citizens that we're required to provide. We've got a lot of unknowns left yet. I know the pandemic looks like it's subsiding, and that's great and welcome news, answers to all of our prayers. But I'm not so sure the fiscal impacts of the pandemic are completely behind us. And we know that there's absolutely expenses that we see in the short term. Scanners at the jail, coroner needs body bags. The courts are going to open up. We're going to need additional funds for those. We're going to have to implement some air filtration systems on our buildings. Our decisions are not inaction. To me, they're caution that we need to provide for this first. We have rent relief out there that's being allocated. The vast majority of that hasn't even been handed out. We need to see how that goes, what effect that has before we spend these dollars. It's careful deliberation, and that's what I want everybody to know. At no point do I ever think that we don't want to allocate these dollars to help people just because it gives me some sort of pleasure to see the county have a slush fund. That's what I've heard it termed. That's my worst nightmare, for government to have some sort of slush fund that it can dip out of, because as previous commenters have said, this is either printed money or taxpayer money. And that's the last thing I want the government to have. So there's no way I can support this, not because of its merits or because of its goals, but because of the unknowns. And that's where we're at, and that's where I'm at mentally. Thank you, Judge Wood.
JP Hires.
Thank you, Judge. One of the things I would really like to see that I think that we are still very much lacking in this court is an open, honest, transparent discussion about what expenses we've had, real expenses, not the wish list, the actual COVID-related expenses, and have a real, frank, honest discussion about what we want to do with it. If you have read the newspaper this last week or listened to KUAF, you know exactly where I stand on this. I want to help people, and this is the only proposal I see that is proposing how to spend the COVID relief dollars in a way that helps people. I'm open to other ideas. I'm here to listen. I'm not hearing anything. I'm not seeing anything else. And this has been really disheartening. It's been hard. But I came here to help people. I'm not a politician. I'm a mom. I'm a teacher. I serve to help people. And to me, this is the only thing that I see that is going to help people. And our people, they're hurting. They're hurting right now. And so that's where I stand. Thank you so much.
Thank you, JP Hires. JP Rio Stafford, and then JP Simons.
Thank you, Judge. I wanted to go back and quote from the minutes of the state's coronavirus task force when they approved this money, when they approved sending money from the state to our counties. And it's a quote, Secretary Walther noted that this disbursement allows city and counties to evaluate where their needs are and potentially fund food banks, provide rental and mortgage assistance, and assist other areas to a greater degree with COVID-related issues. So this is from the task force that actually decided to give us the money. And so this is part of their decision-making process. So to say that that's not how the money should be used is just false, because that's part of why we got the money. I echo what JP Hires said, and I know Judge Wood, you and I have had a conversation about this, and I know and believe and trust that you're working on it, of getting an accounting like they've done in Benton County. I watched Benton County's quorum court meetings, and as we talked about, Benton County gave their JPs a presentation that showed exactly what the full impact of COVID-19 was for 2020. It included things that they cut from the budget in 2020, specifically because of COVID-19. It included unbudgeted direct expenses, and it included unbudgeted indirect expenses. They totaled all those things together, and they found that those three things together equaled an impact in Benton County of $1.8 million. Now, they got $4.8 million from the state, just like we got $4.5 million. So the numbers, they're all now working under the same set of numbers, which is something that I hope that we'll be able to do. But that means that they have, if you do the math, $3 million that they got above and beyond the COVID-19 impact of 2020. And so they've formed a committee specifically to look at what to do with their CARES Act money, which is something that I hope that we can take a page from. They're working together to look at it. They're considering a proposal up there that's very similar to a piece of JP Madison's proposal that would look at relief for small businesses in Benton County. They're taking a serious look at it. I think one of the interesting differences up there is that Benton County's quorum court is all Republican. They're 100% Republicans. So I think, ironically, I think some of the partisan, rancor has been taken out of the equation entirely. And I think there might be just some, unfortunately, some digging in the heels between the two parties of like, oh, well, a Democrat proposed this, so I'm a Republican, so I'm like automatically going to be against it, or I'm a Democrat and a Republican wants this, so I'm automatically going to be against that. And I really think that I wish that we could look past that and just think of ourselves as local representatives instead of Democrat and Republican representatives, and see what is the best for our county. We've heard now from so many different agencies, Seven Hills, the Economic Opportunity Agency, SOAR, the Little Free Pantries, a group called Yolidarity. We've heard personal stories. We know the need is out there. Seven Hills talked about how they're have a $600,000 budget deficit right now. And we know, as we heard at the beginning of this meeting, that we have another $46 million coming our way in this latest Relief Act. So add those two together, it's almost $50 million total. That is a ridiculous amount, to put into a rainy day fund. That's more like a rainy decade fund. So I really want us to take a serious look at meeting some of these needs. We know how many people have slipped into poverty around the nation. We have national numbers. We can extrapolate that to our county of people who slipped into poverty because of and during COVID-19. And this is a unique situation that only happens once every 100 years. So I think that we owe it to ourselves to look outside the box of what we normally do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. JP Simons.
Thank you, Judge. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I want to acknowledge and appreciate the comments made by my colleagues prior to these, and express my vote or my reasoning behind my vote. First off, thank you, JP Madison, for the work and energy that you put into proposing this ordinance, and to your comments of it may not be in its final form, it may not be perfect, but I appreciate you taking the initiative to bring it before the court. My concerns are threefold, and I'll explain them in brief. I was notified today that May 1st is our deadline for opening up the courts, and that comes with a real cost involved to COVID-proof our court system, so that when we're mandated to open those up, that it's safe for the public and our electeds to do the. Also, again, I've expressed and seem to be the only one that has a looming fear of what the census impact on the county's financials are going to be. We probably won't know what that looks like until September or October, but I have visited with chambers, I've visited with regional planning, I've visited with Treasurer Hill, and seem to all share this looming fear of at least county finances, with the expectation of more of the tax base, tax-paying citizens moving into municipalities. And so we are going to have a very real issue of providing shared services at the expectation that we have currently as a growing county on a limited tax base because of those taxpayers moving into the municipalities. So again, I don't know what that number looks like. I don't know what that impact will be to our budget. I hate sitting on funds for a what if and unknown when there are people hurting in the community, but we have a job to do in the county to provide services, and I don't know what that's going to look like. Today, I had a talk with the Springdale Chamber of Commerce and the CEO and president there, and this was the first time, our conversation was the first that he had heard of the opportunity or anything that potential money from the COVID or CARES funds could be coming to the chambers of commerce. And he expressed his hesitancy on how he would be required to spend those, what strings come attached with that, what parameters would be required of him. And honestly, it expressed some hesitancy on, I think his words was, that'd be a nightmare. How do we manage that? He expressed a willingness to work with the county collaboratively to find ways to provide grants for small businesses and things of that nature. So they're willing, but this absolutely poses some obstacles that would have to be addressed. And again, my concern is that it's expressly outlined in this ordinance, and yet he had no idea that that was an opportunity, and isn't prepared to even comment on how they would use that at this time. So just because it's the only ordinance that we have before us at this moment, I don't think we should settle on something. I would like to see this continue to be worked. And again, I admonish myself and the rest of the JPs to come up with solutions. That's what we're here for. That's what we're elected to do. So I'll be voting no on this particular ordinance, not because of its intent or the spirit behind it, but because of how it's currently structured. And I will be working to find another solution to bring before the court, another solution. Thank you.
JP Simons, JP Washington, and then JP Ecke.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I pride myself on being an open-minded person. I try to do a lot of critical thinking, look at both sides of the coin. And so I understand everybody's concerns. Yes, we know we don't need to spend all the money, but yes, we do need something to help. But one thing that I have not been able to reconcile is that we talk a lot about being cautious and about having a reserve. But just a few moments ago, in their original form, there were two ordinances that were put before the court asking us to allocate almost $500,000 for body cameras or body scans, like just a few moments ago. And it's a little disheartening to me because I feel that a lot of people that would have supported that are not coming to the table with solutions. So caution to me is caution. $500,000 is $500,000, whether you spend it on rent relief or for food insecurity or for body cams, it's still the same amount of money. And so I would just like to appeal to the court that I know that the ordinance that we're talking about right now in its original form is not perfect. JP Madison admitted that it's a starting place. But instead of us talking about what is wrong and what we can't do and what we shouldn't do, we're not getting the solutions. Here's what we know. There's a huge food insecurity problem in Northwest Arkansas, in Washington County. Every single day on social media, there are mothers that are saying, I do not have food for my children. Can someone give me food? As soon as I put food into a little pantry and you drive back by it, a few hours later, it's gone. That's what we know. We know that places like St. James Church and other places don't have the funds that they need to help the people in our community. And so I'm quite frankly, all this back and forth, it's a little tiring and exhausting. We have it within our power to do something. So instead of saying what we can't do, what we shouldn't do, that's why we're here right now. We know nobody wants to support this in its original form. So what are the solutions? And this is not something that we have the luxury of waiting 3 more months to do. Like, we need to do it now. We've already waited long enough. So I would just hope that all of my colleagues here on the court, that tonight, let's talk about it. Like, this is what we're supposed to be doing, talking about it. So if you don't like it in its original form, propose an amendment. I mean, it really is that simple.
JP Washington, JP Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. I shared with JP Washington that she has good judgment, and that's why I was glad she was on the Personnel Committee, because we had to make a judgment this past Monday. And she does. And I respect that. Where the conflict comes in is conflict of information. You hear in Fayetteville that the pantries are stripped bare. Children are getting thrown out into the snow, into the ice, and they're suffering. They are suffering. People are suffering. But when I do my research and I ask in other areas about the pantry situation in Northwest Arkansas, I have the director saying, no, that's a false narrative. That is not what's happening. So I hear that the pantries are dry, but the pantries are full. And we're doing food drives every weekend. We have another one going on at Sam's Discount Furniture in Springdale. And I know that my particular church, we have fed over 55,000 households with huge bags and bags and bags and bags of food. And there are other pantries. And I asked those directors, are you full? Yes, we get food in all the time. So on that issue, there's conflicting information. Now, as to the merits of the ordinance, last month, I made my rebuttals to why I was opposed to it. Number one, Articles 3, 4, and 5 are unconstitutional and beyond our legislative duties. We cannot mandate and we cannot tell the judge what he should and what he cannot do. That is a direct violation of our constitutional duties. And to place deadlines and have him come back to this body and to give us a report, we can't do that. So Articles 3, 4, and 5 are unconstitutional. Now, this is from what I understand after speaking to our elected officials. This grant money was received back up, in October for county services. That county services is what I understood this to be. And that it wasn't until December that Mac Mayfield, at the end of the Quorum Court meeting, brought it to everybody's attention that it could possibly be used for rent relief, food insecurities, and whatnot. And that one comment took on a life of its own. This grant money was never intended for that. We have another grant that was intended for that. We have two of them. This one was in particular for county services. The county services that we're talking about are the needs, COVID-related needs in the sheriff's department. But in speaking to the other elected officials, and I'm talking about the assessor, the circuit clerk, the county collector. I just spoke with Matt Durrett. He said, my office is fine. But I had a phone call from Judge Diane Warren saying, please, can we use some of the COVID money to modify my courtroom? I need to start listening to cases in person. We have children in foster care. Yes, they do. They're in foster care right now waiting for an opportunity to be placed, and they can't. So she wants modifications to be done in her courtroom. We have Judge Lindsay that needs modifications to be done in his courtroom. The elected officials shared with me that we need to change out the facilities that we have here to hands-free. We have our public and our county employees using these public facilities, and they haven't been COVID, they're not hands-free. They want to see that done so that way they can protect the health and welfare of our county employees that are servicing our taxpayers and all those that come to this courtroom. So child welfare, courtroom modifications, restroom facilities, this is all COVID related. And that's why, in my opinion, that is county services for the good of the whole county. As to the Chamber of Commerce, I want to affirm what JP Simon said. Springdale was not included. They have no idea, but they are not the fiduciary body. The Small Business Administration was approved by the federal government to help small businesses with their PPP loans. Now, I checked out and I asked, did all the banks treat the small businesses like we were treated? I mean, my bank was fantastic. They reached out to me, they helped me, we came in, filled out the paperwork, and they said, no, they did not. There were some banks that withheld money from their customers and left it to their preferred customers. But there was also a lot of small businesses that didn't have their documents and their accounting in order, and they couldn't process it because there were so many mistakes in that, so they were denied. So I do agree that did happen. At first I said no, and the money didn't run out. That was a false narrative by certain banks, so that way they could just handle their preferred customers.
All right, Ms. Ecke,
One last
I
thing.
need you to wrap it up.
Okay, I will wrap it up with this last point. I've been holding off in and sharing recent history. But as a government body, legislative body, I feel that we need to be mindful of what happened when the GIF, the General Improvement Fund grant, went awry in the state. We have a former senator sitting in federal prison because he dealt with nonprofit organizations. Not all 501c3 organizations are the same. And it wasn't until about 3 weeks ago that I found out how they networked this money. It was very, very sly. Nonprofit, I'm going to give you $300,000. 10% of it can be used for administrative cost. Therefore, you're going to get 10% of the $300,000, $30,000. You're going to divvy up in 5 different envelopes. You're going to give it to this location, to this person, before that grant money is released to you. Once it's released to you, once you give us this money, then it's released to you. There's no trace that we just got a kickback.
Okay.
So I don't think
Thank
we
you.
should be involved in nonprofits to this extent. Thank you, Judge.
All right. So it's on third reading. We got a motion. Did we have a motion second? Oh, that's Washington. Any other discussion? Public comments. State your name and what city?
Josh Moody here in Fayetteville. I'm a certified trainer in crisis intervention, and it's fresh on my mind because I was just recertified last week. The 4 tenets of that training are care, welfare, safety, security. Now, I want to congratulate the court for passing the previous 2 ordinances. Security is definitely, well, I guess our sheriffs, some of them are still here. Sheriff and jail, that's very much security. So I understand that we need to support that. Care, welfare, safety. As we all know, we're still very much in a crisis. Now, we see the light at the end of the tunnel. We feel like we're coming out of it. But this crisis has affected some more than others. I would like to personally commend JP Deacons for the very appropriate amendments that he made to the previous ordinance. Care. A half mile in any direction of this building, there are kids hungry. Do we care? Now, I fully understand that most of you don't represent where this building is located. Okay, let's go out to any part of rural Washington County. There are just as many hungry kids out there, I assure you. Welfare, small businesses, employment, being able to come home knowing that you earned your money, earned your keep. Those small businesses should stay open and they need assistance to do so. Welfare. I work next door to the jail, so I'm familiar with that. Sometimes I ride my bike to work, a mile or 2 in that direction on the trail between Walker Park and Mr. Taco Loco. If any of you have not been there lately, please go there tomorrow. Speaking of safety, despite the fact that we have built some permanent shelters down just southeast of that, that place has grown back up with people living with homelessness. I assure you there are more people without a home now than there were a year ago, and there were too many a year ago. It is our responsibility as public servants to help all those in need in this county. Care, welfare, safety, security. Without any of those, it all collapses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. Public comments. We'll go to Todd Crane and then we'll go ahead.
Hi, it's Todd Crane from Fayetteville. And I would like to just speak on this, and mostly because there's been a lot of misinformation and confusion. A lot of it, I think, is intentional. A lot of it's been driving some of the animosity between members of the court. That's very obvious, as well as members of the community towards members of the court. And I think that's extremely unfair. Knowing that the funding was specifically granted based on allowable parameters that don't necessarily have anything to do with actual amounts of money or costs incurred. If you know what the grants, how the grants were established, you understand a lot more of this. But people have been talking about how JPs are not providing solutions, and they need to understand how difficult it is to come to consensus and discuss things based on what the open meetings laws are. You can't call 2 or 3 people and sit around and brainstorm. You have to have a formal meeting. That's one of the reasons why ordinances really need to be vetted and need to be worked on by going through a committee first. That's one of the greatest illustrations why the ordinance proposal for ordinances to come out of committee is extremely important. Keep talking about expenses that are already incurred and keep talking like that's all we have to worry about. But like JP Simon brought up, there are new costs that are continued to incur. There are new timelines that are being imposed, and an accelerated timeline always costs more money. And you do not have that in your budget. I guarantee you, none of this was talked about in your budget meetings because you didn't know about it. So that's a reason why this particular set of funding needs to be very carefully held onto, not indefinitely, but this is some of the only funding with very few strings attached. And we know more funding is coming, but we don't know which strings are going to be attached to that funding. So it'd be irresponsible to use these unrestricted funds before we know what the parameters for the new grants are. The new grants are likely to fill a lot of these holes, but we also know that like FHA has stopped taking applications. They have over 1,000 applications, they say, on their wait list, but they haven't distributed all of the funds they have. So we know there's more funding to be distributed to FHA and to Springdale, but FHA is putting up roadblocks. They haven't said that the 1,000 applications they have will exhaust all of the remaining funding, only that the funding they've already been allocated is spoken for, even though it's not allocated. And so I feel like FHA is kind of fanning the flames here by telling people we're out of money, and you're not out of money, they're not out of money. They can't distribute it fast enough. They have to improve their processes to get this money out the door. I called FHA and spoke to them today. It's not something I'm making up. And once the new parameters for these grants are known, you can and you should begin to allocate that funding in different ways for the new expenses we're aware of, for things we can anticipate. But there are a lot of ideas and options. So many of them that the court, the public, needs to talk about these more than an email back and forth, more than a one-on-one conversation. The court needs a committee specifically devoted to talking about these funds and brainstorming ways to use these, but you've got to start that work now. This ordinance should not go through. This ordinance needs to be referred to committee, I guess.
Mr. Crane,
this isn't the way to do it. So let's move forward and have a work group to get this taken care of. Thanks.
Thank you. Public comments. Whoever, come on. Tell us who you are and what city.
Yeah, Joe Maynard once again. I did want to point out Ms. Ecky's comment on the GIF corruption. That is about the most inefficient way to distribute money that I've ever seen in my life, is through a government. We hear a lot of talk about compassion. Does anybody here not have compassion? If they would, raise their hand so that we can see who you are. And that way you can demonize the right people. Well, compassion is one thing, but realizing that the country has, ever since I've been alive, there's been the government should do everything for everybody, and there should be a limited government, and that's no different than what we have today, and right here in front of us right now. Is it the responsibility of government to take care of people that are hungry? Is it to house people? That's not, I read the owner's manual and that wasn't in it. And let's talk about compromise for just a minute. Compromise. What I've learned, especially in Little Rock, is compromise is you agree with me. That's what I've learned compromise is. It's not like my position would be no scanners for Sheriff Helder, None of this stuff. If they got a wad of money in Washington, DC, they didn't just send it back to me. That's where I start. Now let's compromise on that. Let's use that as the basis. Now, I haven't seen much taste for compromise unless it's, agree with me. If that's your compromise. I like to illustrate that by saying, let's compromise with a glass of water. Mr. Dennis wants to drink poison, and I want to drink water. So let's compromise just a little poison. Would that be okay? Just a little bit. Okay, well then we can work together, my friend. Let's talk about reality as well. I took a truckload of food to Life Source not long ago, and they didn't have any place to put it. I mean, they did not have a physical place to put the food. Now I heard also a statistic the other day about what is the term that we use? It's food insecure. Well, the way they get those numbers, does anybody know how they get those numbers? The statistics, 5 out of 7 children in Arkansas go hungry. That makes me feel terrible when I hear that on the radio. But if they've had one day of not knowing what they were going to eat that day, then they're counted as food insecure. That's where the statistics came from. So on the food bank, Life Source has plenty of food, but it doesn't seem like there's ever enough. They're always going to be hungry. Well, the churches, that was their role. Where are the churches? They can deliver the food real efficient.
Mr. Mayor, I need you to go ahead and wrap it up.
My wife volunteers at Life Ministries in Prairie Grove, and there's people come in there needy all day, and they get everything they need all the time, every time. So, sometimes it's, there are solutions. GoFundMe, there's churches, the Arkansas Fund, which is for small business help. They're giving away hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Thank you.
Out of the goodness of their hearts. Don't spend all your money while it's burning a hole in your pocket and give me a tax increase later.
Is that Sarah Henley? Go ahead, you recognize.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Actually, this is her husband, Sam Henley, and I am from Springdale.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to be pretty quick about this. In my opinion, I do not think that any allocation should go to the Chamber of Commerce. There is plenty of federal aid out there that is much more efficient than what the chambers can do, especially if they are unaware that it's on the way. They get all the money, and then it takes them 18 months to figure out how to get it out to the small businesses in the area. And also, as a commercial insurance broker, I don't see a struggling business economy around here anymore. I'm working with several new venture startups. A lot of my old businesses are coming back. It is starting to come back from what I'm seeing in the business community around here, statewide, even nationally, with some of the accounts I work with. My other thing is, the last 2 sections of this, everyone has a heart for it. No one wants to deny this. But all I'm saying is don't count your chickens until they hatch, because we all know that the government likes to change the rules in the middle of the game. So we don't know what's coming from them. We don't know what stipulations would be had on us. I also want to make a point of the churches. If there is such a backlash, such a cry for help from the churches, I don't see why the churches aren't doing more for their communities and not asking the county government to stipulate funds for all of this. What are they doing with their congregation? What are they doing with their 10% tithes? Are they not allocating them properly? Why do we need to do that? I'm not saying that it's a horrible thing, or that maybe some point along the lines that there can be some type of beneficial aid. But there is already some aid in housing as well, as with that 7.1 million that has been distributed to other towns. And All they've got to do is show the 80% spending. And from what I understand, then that would allow the county to distribute more funds for housing. So adding more on top of that with other stuff coming, I don't see the point in doing right now until we get everything, we know the rules, and we know where we can go from there. Also,
Okay, Mr. Henley, I need you to wrap it up.
gotcha. One last thing. I agree with Todd, JP, Rio Stafford. I really agree about the committee. I think that would be a great thing. Appreciate you guys and appreciate all your work.
If you're brief, public comment time is done, so be very brief. Tell us who you are and what's your name.
I'm Erin Moody. I'm from Fayetteville. I agree with several of the JPs. I think that we continuously say no to each other and we're not really listening. And I think we need to start saying, but what if? Let's have a conversation and come to a compromise. Have we forgotten how to do that? You're all elected to your positions to serve the county, to serve each of your constituents, all of them, not just the ones that voted for you, but those that didn't vote for you. I urge all of you to listen, ask questions of your fellow JPs and of your constituents and really listen to them. There are so many people suffering and will continue to suffer because of the pandemic. It was a quick ripple effect, right? The world shut down and we as a county realized how connected we truly are. JP Deacons, you're right. There are so many unknowns, but let's think of those people who don't know when their next meal is, or if they will have a place to sleep tonight. The folks that lost their jobs and have yet been able to recover. Or the people in the service industry that have been put in harm's way every day for significantly less revenue and little to no profit. Each of you have constituents who you serve that would benefit from this funding. And we've had the funding since October and are still trying to figure out what to do with it. Let's work together. Let's do better. I trust you to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, JP Madison had a motion, a second to move to a third. Did we do a vote on that? All in favor? So we did
Yes.
say that.
Well, I'd
Yes.
like to move
All
to
right.
extend public comment. We have a lot of people still waiting. We're not alternating.
There's a motion
So-
to extend
By
public
12
comments.
minutes.
Second.
By 12 minutes, a second by JP Washington. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Ms. Patty, take the roll.
Sean Simons. Patrick Deacons. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford.
Yes.
Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. I have 5 for, 9 against, so it fails.
Say it again, Ms. Patty.
I have 5 for and 9 against, so it fails.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Patty, take the roll. We have motion in a second.
No, that was to move to a third. We need a motion.
Oh, there you go. Go ahead, Ms. Madison. JP Madison.
Well, I'm not.
One more time, I'm sorry, I had you
I
off.
moved to pass 12.1.
Second.
Got a motion by JP Madison, a second by JP Hires. All right, Ms. Patty, take the roll. It's to pass the ordinance number 12, item 12.
Sean Simons. Patrick Deacons. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford.
Yes.
Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. I have 5 for and 10 against. This ordinance fails.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Patty. We'll move on to item 13, new business. Council, would you read that one by title only?
Item 13 is a resolution recognizing a vacancy in District 4 of the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas.
JP Duncan.
I just want to thank JP Yanez for her service. As we all know, there's now a vacancy on the court with her exit, and wanted to put the resolution so that we can have that position assigned. So I move passage of item number 13.1.
So we have a motion to pass the resolution, second by JP Lemming. Any discussion? JP Madison.
Thank you, Judge. I wanted to thank JP Yanez for her service, and I wanted to apologize to her for what she had to endure the first 2 months that she sat on the court in a holdover, where she was constantly questioned, constantly threatened with special election. Attorney General's opinions were submitted to try to find for a special election. She was as the Attorney General's response said, she was the rightful holder of that seat. And I feel in many ways, people in county government bullied her out of it. And I feel really bad about that, because she was a great representative for the people of Springdale and gave the Latino community a voice that it had been missing on this court for a very long time. So I just want to thank her for her service.
JP Pine.
I wanted to say I really appreciated the privilege of having to serve with JPNS. And I hope to see her around Northwest Arkansas and be able to greet and visit freely without FOIA. Thank you.
Any comments? Any other discussion? JP Real Stafford.
I just wanted to thank JP Yanez for her service as well, even though we only got to serve together for 2 months. I learned a great deal from her. When I was running, when I jumped into the race, when Candy Clark got seriously ill, and just have an amazing amount of respect for her. She's a dynamo, an amazing nonprofit leader. And I actually, to be honest, I'm sort of beside myself right now, because this is the first time I've heard about the incidents that JP Madison is talking about, and I'm very disturbed by that, actually. Very disturbed by what I just heard, and that's really unfortunate. But she's an amazing person, and I'm honored to call her a friend now. Thank you.
Any other discussion? JP Hires and JP Eckes.
Thank you, Judge. I too would like to thank JP Yanez for her service. She was a really important voice for the people in her community, and that voice is going to be missed. I also just want to let everybody know that her name is pronounced Yanez. I think it's important to know how to pronounce people's names. Thank you.
JP Eckes.
Thank you, Judge. When I first met JP Yanez, she was thinking about starting her nonprofit, and I was so pleased to buy a book for her on how to financially structure your nonprofit, and I gave it to her as a gift, and blessing her and wishing her great success. I'm really kind of taken back by the comments that she was bullied by people in the county. And if there's evidence of that, then we need to find out who was doing the bullying and put an end to it. So anyway, JP Yanez, we wish you all the best. Thank you.
Any other discussion? JP Lemming.
I just want to say thank her and thank her for her service.
Any other discussion? And before we go to public comment, I too will say really appreciate, I appreciate all the JPs and past and present, and regardless of the politics, I know it's a work that they did not have to do, and they chose to come in and serve. And so I appreciate her. And I know we worked a lot of things in her community, had nothing to do with Quorum Court. It was just, again, her work that she was doing in her community. And so again, JP Yanez, we have lunch. You said you would do that. And so I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, thank you very much for your service to Washington County. With that, we'll go to public comments.
Clint Schneckloth, Fayetteville, Arkansas. We had a really great event on this Tuesday evening, Washington County Unmuted, that included a number of the women that serve on the Quorum Court. I don't know if any of you that weren't participating in that were still able to join it or watch the video, but originally Judith was supposed to be one of the members of that Unmuted event. And then, of course, since she resigned from her JP position, then she also dropped out of being one of the panelists and was simply there in attendance. One of the things that she said when she was departing that I think is worth remembering, to your point, JP Eki, about your question around the bullying, is she felt that there was a lot of pressure within this system that was really so callous towards the communities that she felt that she represented, that she could not in good faith remain here. So if you read the articles that were in the paper interviewing her, she felt that that intersectional analysis, her gender, her race, the callous disregard that many of the JPs on this court have towards gender and race, that was a contributing factor to her departure. And I think it would be really important. I know that you don't want to hear this. In fact, multiple people have walked out of the room while I'm saying this because you probably don't want to hear it, but it's still really the truth. You should hear from a member of your court that resigned because of that. You should, I think, keep that in mind. The event that we had on Tuesday night was all women. Raven Cook was the guest moderator, spoke with those 4 women, and it was really a powerful conversation. It was really great, actually, and refreshing to be able to hear from all of them and to have them interact with one another in a way that was really robust. I sometimes wish that there could be formats for the Quorum Court that would be like that too, so that it wasn't just all this procedural back and forth. It could be really, really great. But what was really interesting, and I'll just leave you with this, because I think it's very, very important. A lot of you sitting around this arc here are white dudes like myself. You're used to privilege and voice everywhere you go. I am too. I get it a lot. And at that Unmuted event, there were 60 participants. Okay, 60 people from this county showed up for a Zoom event on a Tuesday night to listen to these 4 women talk together with Raven Cook. I don't know if you can do the statistical analysis on that, but that's really huge. You just don't get that kind of participation unless they're genuinely interested. Of those 60 people that were at that event, 4 were men. One was the host, me. One was Tom Sissom, the reporter. And one was another reporter. And then the 4th was a gentleman that I don't know. 4. And then actually, I learned that there was one couple that was online
Mr. Pat,
together,
I need you to
right?
go ahead and,
yeah.
Pastor, I need you to go ahead and wrap
No,
it
that's
up.
okay. I'm going to keep going until you stop me because
I
you
said,
had
go ahead
a
and
lot
wrap
of,
up.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So my point is this. There is a dynamic here that contributed to the departure of JP Yanez. And you can either choose to completely disregard that, or you can actually listen to what she said and why she left, not blame other people, look at yourself and the behavior of this court and the way that this court silences women, silences minorities, silences all kinds of voices. That's why she left.
Thank you, Pastor. Public comments. Well, as you come up, Maynard, we'll go with, who's that online? What's the name on there?
It's a long one. Sorry about that. Maximiliano. You guys can call me Max if it's easier for you.
Go ahead, Max. Tell us your name, state your name and what city you're in.
Maximiliano Perez. I'm from Springdale. I live in District 4. So I'm just calling to introduce myself and just say, you know, I've lived in Springdale almost my whole life. My family lives in Springdale. And for the past like 5 or 6 years, I've been working in my community, volunteering, working with nonprofits, working with artists, and just trying to stay involved and informed and do my best to be just a good citizen, not just for myself, but for my family and my friends and for the people who are around me. So I would just love to just put my name out there and say I'd like to run to kind of just continue those values and use my voice as kind of just like as a mouthpiece for the people that I you know love to serve and have built my life serving. So thank you guys for hearing me out. My name is, or nice to meet you all. Bye.
Max. Citizen comments. Anybody else on Zoom?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
in the spirit of somewhat of a rebuttal of what we just
one,
heard.
one more time. Name and city.
Joe Maynard, Fayetteville.
All right. Go ahead.
In the spirit of somewhat of a rebuttal of the tirade we just witnessed, you know, I'm about sick of governing by feelings. You know, people get their feelings hurt and they want to manage everybody's feelings. That's not what you do here, regardless of what some people think. You know, we've got dividers masquerading as caring people. It's always race, it's always gender, always this, always dividing, and they're the ones that claim they care the most. Let me tell you what I got. I've got work privilege. I've got work privilege. I've worked to get what I've got. That's the privilege I've got. And I'm sick of hearing this other crap. Thank you.
Citizen comments. Public comments. Ms. Lou Sharp.
Yes, my name is Lou Reed Sharp. I live at 1739 Steel Road in Springdale, Arkansas. I'm a graduate of Springdale High School. I find it interesting what the previous commenter said. JP District 4 is predominantly a minority-based population. They elected a Democrat. They value democratic values, and I think that area needs to be represented by somebody who looks like them. I strongly urge the court to consider that when they make recommendations to the governor on the appointment. We don't want to hijack the race from an area that elected a Democrat, because they're predominantly Democrat, and I think you should take that into consideration. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate the young man who spoke up. I know it's very scary to talk in front of the quorum court. He's been serving his community for many, many years, and I hope you will strongly consider them. Thank you.
Citizen comments. Ms. Patty, is anybody else on the Zoom? All right, Sarah Peace, Sarah Peace, you're on. And then after that, do we have any time left? Sarah Moore.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to comment. It is not lost on me that when we're talking about why Justice Yanez left, that many of the JPs who were antagonizing in their dynamics with her got up and walked out of the room. I've participated in many of these quorum court hearings, and I have personally witnessed numerous accounts of the female justices being muted, not being recognized, and just a general lack of decorum in these proceedings. And so you're all hem-hawing around now going, I'm really shocked to hear about bullying and why she would have left. And any of us who have paid attention the last several months are not buying the act. So I would urge you all to reflect upon your actions, your interactions with JP Yanez and the other female JPs on this quorum court. Recognize the harmful actions of muting and silencing their voices, snickering, turning off the Zoom while they're talking. We've all paid witness to that for several months now. I ask that you consider forming a committee to establish some rules of decorum because they are apparently lacking in this quorum court.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah. Peace. Sarah, Sarah Moore and then Nikki Bieber.
Hi, Sarah Moore, Fayetteville. I really want to thank JP Yanez for her service, not only here as a justice of the peace, but in the community. She was serving well before, serving her community well before she actually became a justice of the peace. And she did an excellent job representing the folks in her community. And I want to echo a lot of the sentiments that came forward earlier. And I am a little surprised that it's surprising. She did leave because she felt like her community was not being listened to, and her presence on this court gave authenticity to the court that they somehow were listening and taking heed for her community and taking care of them. And so her presence here to her felt toxic for her community. And so I think one of the biggest things that we could do to honor, I mean, some of the points brought up earlier about the muting and the being overlooked. I mean, even on her committee assignment, I watched painfully from Zoom how she was discounted when many times she has been the voice of reason, and she's been a voice of calmness and steadiness when there's been chaos on this court that many of us have been around with you guys for the last couple of years through some pretty rocky roads and roller coasters of budgets and such talks. It's been hard, and she stuck through all of those, but this was just too much. And really what it was came down to the CARES money and how ugly and dirty that got. So probably the biggest thing that we could do that could honor her commitment to this court would be to form a committee and to get really serious about discussing that money, because a lot of the frustration that's happening, why people are getting to these fevered pitch and you're seeing these things that you feel like are radical, is because folks have been asking for a discussion since November. We finally, in these last couple of months, finally started having a public discussion, and we want to know that it's really being taken seriously. So I think forming a committee and really putting some action steps in place be the best way to honor her commitment that she had on this court. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Public comment time is done. Ms. Patty, take the roll.
Sean Simons. Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Estoy votando que sí.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires.
Yes.
Evelyn Rios Stafford.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Jim Wilson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Shannon Marty.
Yes.
This resolution passes.
All right, thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 14, council, will you read that one by title only?
Item 14 is an ordinance establishing the procedure to be used for the introduction of ordinances and for other purposes.
JP Wilson.
Now,
Yep.
there were two main things I was trying to accomplish with this ordinance. One was that all our ordinances would go through committee first. That provides an opportunity for there to be a good discussion about what we're trying to accomplish with the ordinance. It also provides an opportunity for it to be amended at that level if it's necessary. This particular ordinance had two amendments on the night that it went through committee. And so I think it's helpful to go through a committee process and to have a good discussion as it goes through. The second purpose of the ordinance was to seek a 1 year before reintroduction of the same ordinance. We have rather robust discussion, it seems to me, anytime something goes through our quorum court. And it seems like once a year should be plenty to discuss that same issue. Those are the two purposes I was trying to accomplish.
This is on its first reading, and so if there's not a,
I would move that we suspend the rules, move it to second reading.
there's a motion and a second to suspend the rule and move to a second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Go ahead, council, read that for a second time.
An ordinance establishing the procedure to be used for the introduction of ordinances and for other purposes.
Again, the same purposes that I mentioned before, and I would move that we suspend the rules and move it to third reading.
There's a motion to move to the third and final reading. A second by J.P. Duncan. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay. Roll call, Ms. Patty, on this last vote.
Sean Simons,
This is on the third and final reading of. Oh, I'm sorry.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
No.
Evelyn Rio Stafford.
No.
Willie Lemming.
Abstain.
Jim Wilson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Shannon Marty. I have 9, 4, 4 against, and 1 abstention.
All right, so we go ahead and move that to the third and final reading. Council, will you read that one for third?
No, you had to.
Oh, got it. So it had to have 10. Okay, so it will go into April's meeting. Item 15 is appropriation ordinance. JP, Council, read that one by title only.
An ordinance increasing the starting salary of the juvenile care workers and appropriating $13,872 from the unappropriated reserves in the general fund to various line items in the juvenile detention center budget for 2021.
JP Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. Unfortunately, there's 5 positions that have not been able to be filled. A lot of it has to do with the low pay. And it was currently we're not asking to regrade it, but the minimum was $12.68 an hour. And we as the Personnel Committee agreed that it needed to be raised and even more than that. So now these positions will start pay at a $14.09 an hour. And this will help us remain competitive in the job market. And also it's allowing us to potentially fill these 5 positions that have gone unfilled because of the low pay. And this request comes from our director, Dr. Denise Collins. And I'd like to make a motion to pass 15.1.
There's a motion by JP Ecke and a second by, was that JP Lemming? JP Pond. Any discussion? Any discussion? JP Madison?
Thank you, Judge. I think that virtually all county employees are underpaid. And so it troubles me that we're sort of singling out one department for a raise, and I wonder where the others are in getting raises like that. I also know that the county has the ability to pay these folks a higher range within JSAP guidelines without coming to us for more money. And if these positions have been sitting unfilled for a while, they could certainly try to recruit people at the higher salary. If it worked for one, then come to us and ask for more money. But we apparently think the world's going to end with the finances of the county. And so we should be scrutinizing every single expenditure. And so until I can see that this money is actually worthwhile, I can't support this. And if we're going to give some people a raise, we need to give all county employees raises. And if we could say, oh, this is just, $13,000, this isn't very much money, so we can just handle that. Well, when you talk about giving every county employee a raise, it's not just $13,000. And they deserve it as much as the juvenile caseworkers. And so think about extrapolating this little bit of money to everybody and then decide if you're really in support of it or not. Thanks.
JP Pond?
Yes, thank you. I believe in the discussion in committee and possibly in JSAP, the reason this came about was we were not able to find people to fill these positions. Well, thank you for coming up. That's all I had. Thank you.
Dr. Collins?
So my response to JP Madison, it's not about a raise. So let's take this coronavirus, for instance. I have right now eight floor staff. And I had one person get exposed. And prior to her getting tested and testing positive, she ended up exposing a total of five staff. That left me with actually only 3 staff on the floor. And that's because I was short in total 7. I can't count the person that's in the staff station because that person cannot leave the staff station. And by standards, I cannot count that person. So that only leaves me 2 to man a floor. And I have 27 because protocol, my coronavirus protocol right now, because I can't hold 2 residents in a room together. I can only house 1 resident per room, which leaves me at 27 population. I can only put 2 people on the floor because that only leaves me 3. 3 staff holding down a facility, 3 shifts. So that's 3
JP
people,
Madison?
Well,
24 hours.
Well, I really appreciate the explanation. I'm not sure how that relates to.
Because I was down those 5 staff and have been down for the entire time of coronavirus. So outside of a contingency plan, if that ever happens again, I have no one to man a facility that has to be ran 24/7.
And how much is this increase going to be to what, how many dollars an hour?
$14.09, $14.09 an hour.
From what?
From $12.68.
I mean, the minimum wage is 11. So, I mean, I think that this is why we need to talk about the minimum wage. I mean, I don't disagree that they deserve a raise. I just have a hard time giving one group a raise and not considering all the other people in the county that make 12.
Okay, and the other people in the county are 24/7? And I'm not discounting the sheriff's office because
Dr. Collins, I'm sorry. You have a point of order.
Can we keep the conversation germane to this topic? We can debate general wages all night long.
So thanks. Dr. Collins, again, you got 5 vacancies and you're just looking to, I guess, out of the ordinances to hire in at a higher rate than the starting rate of $12 to go to $14, to hire in at $14.
Yes, sir. I'm just looking to be able to man my facility just 24/7.
So it's not giving existing people an increase, it's looking to
No,
hire
sir.
people in. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Collins. Any other discussion?
This is to help keep Washington County competitive
that's
and to
not-
help retain and recruit better employment.
Point of order,
And all of
Eki was not recognized.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Collins. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? JP Stafford?
Thank you. I have a different viewpoint on this. I voted in favor of this at Monday nights, or 2 Monday nights ago now, Personnel Committee meeting. These positions require 2 years of college or equivalent. And my feeling was that 1268 was way too low for something that had those sorts of requirements. In fact, I still feel like 1409 is probably too low. So I asked at that meeting, how many of our county workers are making less than 15 an hour? And the answer, we got an answer at that meeting. The answer was 77 staffers. And bringing them all up to 15 an hour would cost the county just $175,000 a year. We can afford it. We have $1 million sitting unspent in the general fund. Our sales tax revenue is 8% above projections so far this year. Once
No
COVID-19.
point of order. Okay, JP Stafford, we get your point. Thank you. Point of order. Can we get a second? Is there a second on the point of order? The point of order stands. Thank you, JP Stafford, though. Thank you, Dr. Collins. Any other discussion points on this ordinance? JP Eki. It's already been, we already got a motion on that in a second. Public comments? Ms. Moody.
Hello again. Josh Moody, Fayetteville. I teach at the Juvenile Detention Center. On this, I definitely agree with you, JP Eki. I also agree with you, JP Madison and JP Stafford. I think that all county employees should be paid a floor of 15 plus. Specifically to the Juvenile Detention Center. I've taught there for 7 years. In that time, and I might be wrong about this, but in that time, I believe we were fully staffed one time for maybe a couple of months. I'm not too far off on that. So it's not a matter of getting people what they deserve. It's a matter of filling the facility with what we need to ensure better care for the children that we take care of. It's an investment in the future of our county. Remember who's being housed in that facility. A higher wage would also make it more competitive for people that actually, we can get interviews, but can we get interviews of high quality people that should be working with the kids of our county? That's the question. So yes, I absolutely hope that this is passed. And I also hope that the court considers increasing the wage across the board. But like Dr. Collins said, this is a 24/7 facility. And when you're short-staffed and you're having to run overtime, you're going to end up spending a whole lot more than $13,000 on overtime just to fill all those slots, 24/7, 365. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. Public comments. Ms. Phyllis
Tivella.
Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Judge. Phyllis Tivella, Prairie Grove. I think that's a great idea. I do agree that that's ridiculous to pay $12 an hour to someone with 2 years of college to be walking in and helping juveniles who need more assistance than just telling them to put their cell phone down. So yes, they should get it. Well, here you go. Since we're willing to, pull a little bit of money out at a time out of the CARES Act, there's your money right there. Why don't you consider that as part of as payment of it? You already started the process of pulling this money out for your special little things. So here's a place where you actually could do some physical, immediate good for a group of people who have no control of their lives right now. Somebody else does. And that somebody else needs to be fully staffed. So if you can't get people who are qualified and willing to work there for $11 or $12 an hour, then yes, you pay them a little more. And Mr. Moody is correct. You get a better group of people. So this is one time trickle down works. If you pay for better staff, you have better outcomes for your juveniles that are there. If you have better outcomes, you have fewer people in the school to prison pipeline that we continually feed. So now we have fewer people in jail. This is not a one-to-one correlation. I'm not saying every child who goes through juvie will come out smelling like a rose at the other end. But the people you hire are having a direct impact on these children. And in order to get the assistance they need, you need to be able to pay them accordingly. If there's $100,000 sitting in the general fund and unappropriated, funds, then give all of the county employees a break. I don't understand how you continually nitpick at these kinds of things that need to be taken care of, but you won't look at the big picture and say, you know what? There's a lot of good we could do with that CARES money. And if you're going to pay for it to buy body cams and body scanner for one building, then you ought to be able to say, I can pull out that money and pay for people to take care of our children who are in desperate need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sabella. Public comments. Ms. Rebecca Graham, you're recognized.
Hi, yes, Rebecca Graham, and I am in Springdale. I just want to confirm you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead.
So while I agree that any worker has value and they should make more than $12 an hour, I do want to bring a few points together from previous discussions. So there have been comments in the past by some JPs that there are jobs out there if people wanted them. And this is a very good example of one of these situations, and why just because jobs may be posted doesn't necessarily mean they can be immediately filled. I'm a single mother. I, until this pandemic, had a really good job. I worked in law enforcement for nearly a decade in a similar job to the JDC. And so I just want to kind of bring that together for you guys, because people want to work. People were working prior to this pandemic. And until we address some of the real issues of COVID and the issues that those have brought about, people, despite their desire to work, cannot, because in my situation, I have a child to care for. I have a high-risk grandmother that lives next door to me that I help take care of. And so it would have been a luxury to have been able to stay in my position, but that was not an option for me. And so I'm wondering, while I do think that an increase in pay is needed for everyone, I don't know that increasing the pay for one position, especially a new hire, which overlooks the people who have been there putting in the work throughout that entire pandemic. I don't know that that increase on one position is really still going to fill that job, because it doesn't meet the overall needs of people who are suffering, that want to work and are qualified to work, but are out stuck in the county with no help because they've been treading water for a year with no assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graham. Pastor.
You don't know who I am yet. So Clint Schneckloth, Fayetteville, Arkansas. If you're going to use Robert's Rules of Order, is it possible that you could not weaponize it for one political side? What I'm noticing, for example, is the speakers here, you allowed 4 minutes from the alternative viewpoint to other people, but then cut it off at 3 for others. And then similarly, just now, Evelyn, who is on a computer and therefore it's a little bit less accessible.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Is that okay?
No, come on, talk.
Okay. She's up there. She has access issues because she's on the screen, and then we're using Robert's rules to like shut down her points, but only the points that he disagrees with. And I think that's really problematic. In general, what you've been hearing from a lot of members of the community is that there's just a real problem with the way you're treating each other in this court. And I think that a lot of it is being led by like dudes like this, who's acting the way that he's acting. And you guys right there are the ones who are responsible for that. He happens to be biased and on his side because that's his political party, right? So the parliamentarian isn't operating in a fair manner. The parliamentarian is running it according to the bias of one political wing. And this is just, we're watching this all the time. It's repeating over and over and over again. And you even interrupt like constituents while they're talking just to make points like the one that Sean over here made. Yeah. Thank you, Sean. All right. Have a good night, you guys.
Thank you. JP Stafford.
Thank you. And I'll just take a quick second. I promised that I was circling back to the point at hand and the agenda item behind us when I was point of order. But all I was going to finish saying was that we're going to continue to have a competitive job market, and our county government needs to make sure that we attract and retain good, talented people and value them by paying them a fair wage. So that's why I'm in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, JP Stafford. Any other public comments? Ms. Patty?
Sean Simons,
Yes.
Patrick Deakins,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke, Sam Duncan, Chandra Washington, Eva Madison, Robert Dennis, Suki Hires, Evelyn Rio Stafford,
Yes.
Willie Lemming, Jim Wilson,
Yes.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Lance Johnson,
Yes.
Shannon Marty. This ordinance passes.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 15 passes. Item 16, again, appropriation. Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance recognizing revenue in the amount of $298,796 in the high-intensity drug trafficking areas grant fund and appropriating $298,796 from the HIDA grant fund to the HIDA 2021 G21 GC 0004A budget for 2021.
JP Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is a grant that the Sheriff's Department receives every year to combat drug trafficking in the area. This allows them to coordinate with other area agencies and gives us the flexibility to combat this. I move passage of item number 16.1.
I have a motion by JP Deakins, second by JP Lemming. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Public comments?
Hi, I'll try to be brief because I know everyone's getting really tired, but
Again, name and city.
I'm sorry, Sarah Moore, Fayetteville. I didn't move yet. It's getting expensive though, so I might. No, I'm just kidding. In regard to the way that we address drug activity in our communities, there's a lot of conversation, especially in the legislature right now, in regard to changing different laws and how we respond to addiction. And so one of the things that I'm curious, I don't know if the sheriff's office is online and could talk to, is with this money that they're receiving in, I know a lot of times that is for personnel and it's for training, but I'm curious if this, and I apologize, I should have looked at it earlier, but if this has any allowance for anything else that actually combats, the drug use and trafficking in our area, that's like prevention and education, or has a component to reduce recidivism of folks. Because many times when people are involved in these drug trafficking organizations, a lot of times they're users themselves, they're possibly being human trafficked and sex trafficked as part of these. And so I'm curious what other components possibly we're putting in place with this, and wondering what the thoughts are with this money going forward in the budget, if we're able to talk to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Public comments. All right, Ms. Patty, take the roll.
Sean Simons, Patrick Deakins, Lisa Ecke, Sam Duncan, Chandra Washington, Eva Madison, Robert Dennis, Suki Hires, Evelyn Rio Stafford,
Yes.
Willie Lemming, Jim Wilson, Butch Pond, Lance Johnson, Shannon Marty. This ordinance passes.
All right, item 16 passes. Item 17, appropriation. Counselor, would you read that one by title only?
Item 17 is an ordinance anticipating additional revenue of $487,288 in the drug court grant fund and appropriating the amount of $487,288 from the drug court grant fund to the Veterans Treatment Court grant budget for 2021.
JP Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is a grant that the drug court received. They work in partnership with the University of Arkansas as the Full ordinance reads, this will be, this grant money will be used to cover costs of that program. I move passage of 17.1.
A motion by JP Deacons, a second by JP Pond. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty, will you take the roll?
Sean Simons.
Yes.
Patrick Deacons.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Jim Wilson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Shannon Marty. This ordinance passes.
Item 17 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 18, appropriation. Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $15,000 from the Coronavirus Relief Fund to general supplies line item in the coroner budget for 2021.
And JP Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. As the counselor noted, this will be coming out of our coronavirus relief funds. This is an unfortunate cost that's been brought to fruition by the pandemic. This is our coroner, Roger Morris, asking for additional funds to buy additional body bags for his office. I move passage of 18.1.
We have a motion by JP Deacons, second by JP Pond. Any discussion? Any discussion? JP Rios Stafford?
I am going to vote yes on this. I'm in favor of this. I think this is an appropriate use of some of these CARES Act funds. However, this particular example of $15,000 was given earlier in this meeting as an example of why we should set 4.5 million in reserve. And I doubt we're going to be buying $4.5 million worth of body bags. Thank you.
Any other discussion? JP Pond?
Yes, thank you. You know, this is an appropriate way to spend some of that money, but if you understood from behind the scenes, he's likely having to pay 3 or maybe 4 times as much for these body bags as he normally would. It's a kind of a supply and demand issue. And really, there's not time to find military surplus or whatever you can, which was actually some of the better products. And the reason I'm bringing that up, we're going to see many more unforeseen expenses that'll be much higher than they were last year. So there is reason to be very careful with what we spend when we really don't know how many more grants we're actually going to get or where the revenue is going to wind up being, how high or how low. Most of the time, as you know, we deal with the unknown and many times the unforeseen. I'll be voting for this. Like I said, it's unfortunate that the expense goes up on these things as the pandemic has dealt us a very severe blow. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Sean Simons.
Yes.
Patrick Deacons.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford.
Yes.
Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Shannon Marty. This ordinance passes.
Item 18 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 19, again, Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance recognizing additional revenue of $60,836.64 and appropriating $79,195.27 from the general fund to various line items in the sheriff's budget and jail budget for 2021.
JP Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is money that the Sheriff's Department receives for staffing events and physical locations for security. They issue essentially invoices for that and are being paid. They come into the county, and this is just reallocating that money back to the Sheriff's Department. So I move passage of item 19.1.
Motion to pass item 19 by JP Deacons, second by JP Lemming. Any discussion? Robert Dennis, JP Dennis?
Sorry, just left it off.
Oh, got it.
Voting.
Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty, will you take the roll?
Sean Simons.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford.
Yes.
Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. This ordinance passes.
Item 19 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 20, Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance amending ordinance 2021-01 to revise the standing committees of the Quorum Court for the 2021 to 2022 term and for other purposes.
JP Madison.
Judge, I'll let that be on first reading and we'll just have it on second reading next month.
All right. JP Deacons.
I'd like to suspend the rules and move this to a second reading.
There's a motion to suspend the rules and move it to a second reading, a second by JP Duncan. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ms. Patty, what's the roll?
Sean Simons. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford.
No.
Willie Lemming.
No.
Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. I have 9 for and 5 against, so it fails.
9. So that goes to second reading. Council, go ahead and read that for us.
Next month.
Oh, it was only 9, right? We needed 10. Okay, so that'll go on to the second. Oh, item 21, the DNS CUP. Council, will you read that one?
It's going to be an ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for DNS refrigeration.
JP Lemming.
Thank you, Judge. What this is, it's way out north of Cincinnati, and they've bought 5 acres, and they're going to put their business up into the front there by the highway, and they're going to build a house in the back. And there has not been anybody that's said any bad thing about it, so I move it to pass, or move it to the, I want to make a motion to put it to the second reading.
Suspend the rules and move to a second reading.
Suspend the rules, move it to a second reading.
We have a motion to suspend the rules and move to a second reading, a second by JP Madison. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, Council, will you read that one for a second?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for DNS refrigeration.
We got a motion to suspend the rules and move to a third and final reading by JP Pond, a second by JP Lemming. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, Council, will you read that for a third and final?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for DNS refrigeration.
JP Lemming. We had a motion to approve item 21, a second by JP, that was by JP Lemming, second by JP Pond. Any discussion? Any discussion, public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty, will take the roll.
Sean Simons. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford.
Yes.
Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. This ordinance passes.
Item 21 passes. With that, we'll go to committee reports. Let's go with county services. JP Duncan.
The committee report is in your packet. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, JP Duncan. Finance and budget, JP Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. The report is in your packet.
Jails and law enforcement and courts, JP Johnson.
Thank you, Judge. The report's in your packet. I move to adjourn.
We have personnel, JP Ecke.
Yes, Judge, the report is in the package, but I would like to state that my objectives was made clear and my expectations for the Personnel Committee. And I will say to bring effective change to Washington County by creating active involvement among the JPs, building positive relationships with elected officials, establishing collaboration and accountability. Through effective communication and collaboration, encouraging open dialogue and solutions-focused work efforts and aligning purpose, mission, and goals is what the Personnel Committee objectives are for the next term. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, JP Ecke. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Meeting adjourned. How do you?